IB Nation, welcome back to another episode of the Irish Breakdown Podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Happy Wednesday, everybody. And there is a different schedule going on for today with Marcus Freeman's press conference going on. And typically we do buy, sell, hold on Wednesdays, but what we're actually going to do today is we're actually going to recap what Marcus Freeman talked about in his press conference. And then when we're done with that, since this is a later start today, we're going to wrap everything up with a mailbag, so be sure to get those questions in. But
literally 60 seconds before the show starts, I said, okay, Trev, I'm going to start the show today. I'm just going to say what I need to say. And then it starts, and I'm just like, and Trev, a true professional, is like, okay, guess he forgot what he told me a minute ago. So I'm going to lead the show off and kick the show off. So that's my bad for the clunky start, everybody. But Trev handled it like a champ. So very well done, Trev.
Thank you, sir.
I'm like, funny. Oh crap!
The second
I'm supposed to,
what got me was the second that you realized,
yeah,
and you were like, "Oh,
whoopsie." And anyway, but no, I'm excited to do the show today. I feel like we've had a lot of shows the last couple of days, and according to a text I just got, I think some more news might come down the pike here pretty soon. So I'm excited about it. We were at Marcus Freeman's press conference today. We're going to talk about a lot of the different things he talked about. Ended up being, we weren't sure going in what all it was going to be about. We obviously knew he was going to address the situation that happened that was reported upon at the wrestling event, which, I've intentionally not talked about this on my show. I kind of let Sean and Vince talk about a little bit on their show. But I've intentionally avoided it because, number one, it was something we knew about before. And, our stance was Vince and I had talked about it. And I had talked to some people that were there and I said, you know what, let's let the judicial or the legal process run its course, because we knew that when this all came out, Marcus Freeman was going to be like, wow, dude, you handled yourself a lot better than I probably would have. And the person who was doing the accusing was the person that was 100% at fault and is a dishonest person. And I didn't know if Marcus Freeman was going to address it publicly. He chose to do so today. I was this is a weird thing to say, because again, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it other than just, that was not the head football coach at University of Notre Dame talking to begin the show today. That was the husband to Joanna. That was the father to Vinny talking at the beginning of that show. And I was like, good for you, because that needed to be said. And I was glad that he thanked the school, and they had his back from day one. Penn had his back. So I was happy that Marcus Freeman, the father of Joanna and the husband of Vinny, was able to say what needed to be said. I was glad he called out the report, the fact that it was done. And I have no problem that it was reported upon. It should have been reported upon. It should have just been reported upon appropriately. Like, I listened to Sean and Vince's debate the other day, and I told Vince, I said, I actually agree with Sean. It was journalism. It was just bad journalism. And, and so he said what he needed to say. He's ready to move on. I'm ready to move on. And, he said what he needed to say. The legal process ran its course and came to the proper conclusion. Justice was served in that regard. And I think Marcus Freeman showed himself to be what we've always thought he was, which is a good dude. And you just don't go after a man's family. You got beef with me, you come to me. We can handle that beef. You go after my kids. Like I said, I think Marcus Freeman showed way more restraint. He showed in complete restraint. And I don't know if a lot of us would have had the ability to do that. I sure wouldn't have, with my calm, normal, non-excited at all demeanor that I have, But I'm glad he said at the beginning it wasn't questioned, because the media would have had to ask about it if he didn't address it. But I thought he addressed it in a way where it's like, okay, cool. It's over. It's done. Now let's talk football. Now let's get to things we want to talk about. And I was actually, there's a lot of questions. I'm like, okay, dude, seriously, do we need another question about the NFL? But I thought I was pleased with the media for not going back to that topic, and just, he said what he needed to say. we've all said what we needed to say. It's time to the legal process has played itself. Let's move on, and that's what we're going to do here at Irish Breakdown. We're going to move on. We're talking Notre Dame football because we're 2 days away, Trev, from knowing completely what this roster is going to look like for 2026. So I'm excited about that.
I'm ready to officially turn the page, man. I really am. As I use this term loosely, but as fun as the last month and a half have been, I'm ready to start talking legit ball. And we always talk football here on this podcast, but about applicable things to the 2026 season. There was a lot of uncertainty in the last month and a half around the future of Notre Dame, the future of their head coach, the future of the roster, what's going to go on. And one of the things I appreciated about today's press conference is a lot of that was addressed. It wasn't just, we had a good portal process, obviously not done, got to finish strong, but hey, go Irish, everybody have a good rest of your day. It addressed a lot of the uncertainty around this program, and I think this press conference came at the correct time. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about. But, man, just selfishly, and Brian, you and I have had some conversations backline off the air about this. Here in the next, 96 hours, you and I get to sit down in a show and start talking about, hey, this is what we think this team could do because this is what the roster is. Thank goodness, man. Thank goodness.
Yeah, it was it was fun to kind of get a chance to talk ball, get his reactions to things. I asked him a question about Francis Brew and CJ Carr, and you could just tell he was dude, he was fired up to talk about Francis Brew. You know what I mean? Like, he was super pumped to talk about him. And, it was good to talk ball and know that we can start talking ball. You know what I mean? And,
yes.
We could have talked ball all we wanted. We could have talked about the 2026 team. It just felt like it was kind of like we'd have been doing it just to do it, knowing we're going to have to go back and say, well, now that things have changed, let's redo this receiver breakdown we did a week and a half ago. Now that we know this guy's gone, that guy's gone, that guy's gone, this guy's here, whatever. And it's like, look, let it play out. And then, of course, I mean, in the thing in the past, like, all the Notre Dame players went into the portal right away and they got their players out of the portal right away. It was never like, I mean, we knew Malachi was done before it opened up last year. We knew Riley was done. Sam was done. Like, I mean, I think Devontae Smith kind of popped up in like a little bit into the process. But, I mean, the big names that people got excited about were kind of done. Like, Jared Dawson kind of popped up later in the process a little bit. But, like, the big names were done. Now it's like, well, let's see how this one goes. And, but we're getting a lot closer, Trev, and I'm excited to start really diving into this team because, one of the topics that was discussed today, and I'm calling a little bit of an audible, I want to talk about this right here, Trev, is hearing him talk about how they're going to handle what happened at the end of the year. And to talk about the comment he said that I was fired up by, he's like, we need to make sure we leave no doubt next year. And I'm seeing people in the chat comment on this. And of course, me, and I'm always, everything to me like relates back to a movie scene. You know what I mean? So I'm like, scene from Remember the Titans, one of the greatest football movies of all time, about like, look, leave no doubt. Like, don't go 10-2. Yeah. Should we have been in the playoffs? Absolutely. It was basically Marcus Freeman saying in his way what we said, which is, we got screwed. Looking at it from we got screwed. We got 100% screwed. We should have been in. There was no reason for us to drop when we dropped. There was no but we put ourselves in this situation. Remember this pain. Remember why we're here, because we put ourselves in this situation by not handling business at the beginning of the season. And it was good to see that. And then him talking about roster retention and the culture in the room. I mean, Josh Burnham is the only guy that left that I can think of to the portal that was a returning rotation regular, like, impact guy. I mean, KK was at times, and then at other times he didn't play. I mean, he had the best game of his career, and then the next week didn't play a snap. Now, we could argue, should he have been more of a factor? Yeah, but he wasn't. Like, that's kind of the point. And so when you hear him say, remember the pain, leave no doubt, and then you see okay, that's fine. He can say that all he wants. Coaches always have slogans. I mean, coaches for teams that go 2-10 have slogans. Mike Norvell had slogans in 2024. Doesn't mean that they work, right? But to then see it backed up by the fact that they are having the portal success they're having. And then then there were guys he mentioned losing Jadon Blair. He mentioned losing who was the other Cree. He mentioned losing. I'm trying to think. There's one other guy that he mentioned by name that they lost. But Devontae Smith to the NFL, and that's why they went to that. But other than that, you really kept the core. That's what he said. The core of the team you had, and you start adding them up. You're like, okay, maybe this team is going to handle properly what happened to them, because you and I said, it's not a given that they're going to handle it properly. Sometimes you can be too in your feelings about it. Sometimes you can be not in your feelings about it enough. Sometimes you can be in your feelings, but then use those feelings to properly, motivate you to handle things in an appropriate way. Sometimes you don't. You really don't know how they're going to handle it until they show it. And we're not going to really know until we see them take the field against Wisconsin and Rice and teams like that. But, the proof is in the pudding to a degree, in that, you're adding a lot more impact talent than you lost from a portal standpoint. And, your big misses were, other than Josh Burnham, for the 26. I mean, look, I think Jadon Blair could have been a star at Notre Dame. I still believe that. But clearly he wasn't going to be a starter for them in 2026. Even if he stayed and had a phenomenal offseason, that was more 27, 28. So there may be some questions at places down the road, linebacker down the road. Those are things. But when you look at the 2026 football team, Josh Burnham's the big loss from the portal. Everybody else was NFL draft, Billy Schrauth, Emil Wagner, to go along with obviously the two big ones, or guys that were graduates. And then you supplemented it with the number one recruiting class in the country, and then a small but very impactful portal class that I think on 3 and 247 ranks as the number one class per rating, which again is misleading, because if you've got a small number, it's going to drag that up. But it seems as though the team is handling that well, and not letting what happened fade, but also not letting it consume them in a way where it becomes unhealthy.
Absolutely. The biggest takeaway for me when Freeman talked about, just his gut reaction and then the actions following this playoff snub about a month ago, is it was the self-reflection piece. We've gotten a lot of questions in this show, and I've seen it in the live chat quite a bit about, what's going to separate this team from 2023 to 2024 Florida State. Well, it's the resolve. What's your answer? Because it would be very, very easy for a lot of the players, a lot of the coaches on the team to feel sorry for themselves. Man, that's BS. That's a load of crap. We should have been in. This is dumb. Why even go through it again if we're just going to get snubbed again? Listening to the outside noise. The retention on the roster speaks volumes for the mindset of the players that have the opportunity to return. Jalen Sneed's coming back for a 5th year. Adon Schuler, guys like that. Adon Schuler, Drake Bowen, players like that were eligible to go to the draft, and they elected to come back and make a lasting impression in South Bend. Drake Bowen, no matter what happens, portal, he can't. He will be out of eligibility after the 2026 season. He made the decision to come back and be a leader of this team. And so I'm always an action person. And you can, to your point, Brian, you can say all you want to. Like you said, Mike Norvell had slogans and sayings for the 2024 season, but we always question what the resolve of this team was going to be. The retention of the roster is huge. Their aggressiveness in the portal was huge, albeit faulty process, something that we're going to talk about here later in the show. But when you have a team coming back like what Notre Dame does, they're setting up for something special. And the team believes in what they're building towards this upcoming season. And I think that's huge, because you need that buy-in. I would argue Florida State didn't have that buy-in. Now, I'll have to go back through and look at what was retained, who left that had the opportunity to come back, and so on and so forth, what they did in the portal, but it's what they've done up to this point has been really, really promising. Really promising.
I know. I couldn't get the button. I was hovering over it and it wouldn't click. Now, and then, do you want to kind of jump into the portal? What do you want to talk about next, Trev? What do you have on you're leading the show today? What kind is the next? Because we're going to just try to go through the different topics that he talked about in today's show. What was the next one you had on your list?
Yeah, in the spirit of what they're bringing back and some of the core of their team, Brian, you asked the question at the end of the press conference. This is the first time in quite some time that Notre Dame has a returning starting quarterback, and the first time in Freeman's tenure. And then he went on to add on and say, and it's also the first time it's returning starting quarterback and a returning offensive coordinator. You want to talk about kind of the nucleus of what this team is going to be about, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Bringing back CJ Carr is huge. Mm-hmm. Absolutely huge. And that is such a big step in the right direction.
Yeah, it is. And it's, I said the question was like, you're going into year 5 and you're about to experience something you have yet to experience, which is a returning starter quarterback. And what is that like? Because it's different. Like, everybody knew who the quarterback was going to be going into 2023. Like, yes, they gave Tyler Buckner a chance to battle, but like, we all knew Sam Hartman was going to be the quarterback, right? We all knew Riley Leonard was going to be the quarterback in 2024. Everybody knew that Tyler Buckner was going to be the quarterback in 2022, but there still was a battle, and those guys were kind of stepping into new roles or were new to the team, and they didn't have the same relationships and leadership, where now it's you're going into situations where, hey, like, we know who we are. We know who our leader is. We don't have to be asked questions about this quarterback versus this quarterback. We know who we're rallying behind. We know who the guy that's going to lead us into the promised land, so to speak, is. And Coach Freeman also talked about, like, now, and this is what we were discussing in the show the other day, what's it going to be like for CJ in year 2? And he talks about, like, we're teaching him things. Now it's about the foundation has been laid. Now it's about building on it, right? It's like, you're trying to build a home. Floor 1 is all set. It's ready to go. Now you're going to build that, that second floor, and then hopefully it's a bigger, better version of what you laid on the foundation. So, or you could even say, like, just the literal foundation was made, and now you're going to build your really nice, awesome house on top of it. So he talked about studying Matthew Stafford. Like, he's not studying X's and O's. He's studying how he plays. How does he play the game? What kind of timing does he throw with? What kind of command does he have? What does he do when this pressure comes? What does he do when that pressure comes? And those things are all aspects of what the next level looks like for CJ. Like we talked about in this show the other day, you run double slant. It's an inside out read. If number 2 has the step and that guy's coming from behind him, you bang the inside slant. That's what a redshirt freshman first-year starting quarterback is going to do. In year 2, you run double slant. It's an inside-out read. You see that number 2 is technically open. That's the slot's technically open. That's your number 1 read, I should say. But, man, I see that they're playing off coverage, and that guy sank on the backside, so I know that Faison's going to come on a level slant right there. And I know if I get him the ball, he's not only going to get the first down, he's going to square up and make and have room to work. That's experience. So, yes, you did the right thing here. Yes, you did the right thing, looking at the slot fade, the read side to the slot fade, but a more experienced quarterback is going to know if this safety comes here, that means I know that they're playing backside. They're going to come back here, and I'm coming right backside to the dig. I'm coming right backside to the stop route or the comeback or whatever, and kind of knowing that, like, look, this is where, even though this is the read, this is going to be the throw to make on that. And that's what veteran quarterbacks do. That's what experienced quarterbacks do that you can't possibly ask even the most talented and intelligent redshirt freshman or first-year starting quarterback to make. And that was the thing that you talk about is, and now it's different for how you coach receivers. Like, you got to coach receivers differently now. And hopefully Mike Brown understands that. And what I mean by that is, hey, man, I know that right now on this read, you're considered option 4. But run your route like you're option 1 because you don't know if CJ is going to come back to you. And that's kind of what I'm looking forward to seeing. But that's what's different in year 2 than what's different in year 1. This is why we talked about how important, how CJ can actually be the guy you build your offense around now. You know what I mean? And it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that you addressed and what he's going to be able to do on the field from an X's and O standpoint, but Marcus Freeman laid it out beautifully in response to your question. Why is he going to be able to do those things? Because it's been established that now he understands the expectations of what it's going to be the starting quarterback at Notre Dame. He understands the highs, he understands the lows, he understands the magnitude of it, because it's one thing to say that you're ready for it. And I believe that CJ Carr was as ready for it as he possibly could have been without doing it last season. I think that's one of the reasons why he won the starting quarterback job. Also outside of, edging out Kenny Minchie is, the more talented ready guy. But it's easy to say, yep, I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to roll. But it's different when there's 60,000 fans screaming at you at Hard Rock Stadium at night. It's different when there's a stadium full of people inside of the house that Rockne built that are relying on you to put together what we thought at the time to be a game-winning drive to win the football game. It's different. It'll be different when they get to the playoffs. But one of the other benefits, and I got this question the other day, is like, how do you think CJ's going to do because he didn't play in the playoffs this year? It's like, that. Okay, well, Carson Beck didn't play in the playoffs last year, and he's doing pretty okay. Fernando Mendoza didn't play in the playoffs last year. He's doing pretty okay. Why were they okay, though? It's because they had experience leading up to this moment. They weren't taking their first snaps in the playoffs. Now, I think that's what made what Gunnar Stockton did last year so impactful. Because, Georgia didn't lose to Notre Dame because of what Gunnar Stockton did. But now everybody has this established baseline of, what it means to be a starting quarterback at a Power 4 school. And now that you have that out of the way, and now that CJ has his bumps and bruises out of the way, man, it's going to be special. And I think Freeman knows it too. You're muted.
The sting. I've clicked it and it's not working with me today. But you make a great point. You look at the teams in the playoffs this year, and I'm looking at the 12 teams. The number 12 team, their quarterback had never played in the playoffs before. The number 11 team had not. The number 10 team had not. The number 9 team had not. The number 8 team had not. 7 had not. 6 had not. 5 had not. 4 had not. 3 has. 2 had not. And 1 had not. There's one quarterback that played in the playoffs this year that had played in the past, and his team went 0 for 1. And again, it wasn't because of him. I mean, if you think about it, Gunnar Stockton is 0 for 2 in playoff games, and he's played pretty well in both games. He was, I would argue, he was better last year even than he was this year. But and then next year there's going to be a lot of different players that are going to be there. So it's like you said, all the semifinal teams, none of the quarterbacks have played in it before. But it's about when you get there, you already have the ability to do it. Not everybody has to lose a Super Bowl before they then go win a Super Bowl. Some guys just win it the first time they get there. You know what I mean? Like, I lived the tortured life of a Denver Bronco fan where I had to, watch my guy lose 3 before he won a couple, but not everybody does that. And so, but what CJ showed this year to me was he's got the internal stuff to thrive as playing quarterback in Notre Dame. I think it's easier the more you're into it. Like now and this is what he said, he knows what to expect now. There's no questions about what it's going to be like. What are the questions going to be like? How do I have to handle the media? How do I handle this? How do I handle that? How do I handle the pressure of this moment, that moment? And he's had to play on the road, coming from behind against a top 10 team, and the team failed. He's had to, in Notre Dame Stadium, night game, primetime TV, have to lead a fourth quarter comeback, and then it works, and then the different things. And he's had games where he struggled mightily, and there's games he played like that dude's going to be the number 1 overall draft pick someday. And that's all part of the learning process, and they haven't had a chance to have that. And I'm very curious to see what Mike Denbrock is going to do, because this is the first time when you look at it from a Mike Denbrock standpoint, Trev, this is the first time he's going to have not only the same quarterback, but the same type of quarterback for a second year in a row. Mike Denbrock, and I don't know that we appreciate this enough, and I'm including myself. This isn't like, sometimes I say we, and I'm saying we, even though I know I didn't do this, because I don't want it to come across like I'm attacking the Notre Dame fan base. I we, and I put myself in it because we're all Notre Dame fans. But this one, I'm absolutely putting myself in. I don't know if we've talked enough about how Mike Denbrock had to adjust what he did this year offensively quite a bit. And things that they counted on in year 1 and were bread and butter things in year 1, they couldn't do in year 2 because they have a different type of quarterback. And what does it mean now that he gets to he knows what CJ can do. He knows the talent he has. He knows how this offense is going to run. And the players get to be part of an offense that's going to look similar in its foundation. There's going to be different plays, but it's still going to be an offense built around this type of quarterback. And even then, I finally found it was 1912 is the last time that they scored as many points in a season as what they did this past year.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Well, they got their starting quarterback back.
I was minus 66 the last time that happened, Trev.
It's insane.
So, yeah, I mean, it's exciting to think about.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and you could tell what Marcus Freeman's level of excitement was. I mean, this is the first. We talked about it on the show a couple days ago. When's the last time that Notre Dame had a potential Heisman favorite? Talked about what FanDuel's odds were for that. When's the last time Notre Dame went into a season with that and a returning offensive coordinator, and that offensive coordinator being somebody as highly regarded as Mike Denbrock? And you could tell what Freeman's level of excitement was. But with that being said, one of the other things that he covered in the press conference, and it ate up probably a good chunk of what the press conference was. CJ isn't the only player that is going to be on the 2026 roster. They talked a lot about the transfer portal, who they got. He talked about Keon Keeley, the two receivers from Ohio State. You asked a question about Francis Brew. You got to ask questions about the cornerback from Michigan and DJ McKinney. And then a lot was talked about with the portal process. Some of it were windows into what it kind of was. Some of it you kind of had to weed through, some of the.
And some of it was, that's a nice job of you sticking up for your guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%. Just what he's supposed to do.
Absolutely. But there was a lot of talk about the transfer portal. And we mentioned it in last night's show. We have thoughts on the process. Once it's all over, we'll continue to recap our thoughts on the process. But you look at what the results yielded, and Notre Dame brought in a lot of talent. On offense, they surrounded with CJ Carr with two more explosive weapons in the pass game. And then defensively, you filled a lot of needs. It's really promising. And he talked about that a lot today, too, in his press conference.
Yeah, I mean, he said number one goal in the portal was retention, keeping his players. And it's interesting because they lost 18 guys. And we're sitting here saying they did a good job of retaining their players. That's sadly the new reality in college football. You're not going to be able to keep everybody because guys want to play. And sometimes you process guys out. I don't like it, but that's and I said this, Trev, the more you start doing this with paying players and all the rev share, that means that teams are going to have to make decisions on who they keep on their team. So guys got cut from Notre Dame and every other college football team this year, other than Army, Navy, and Air Force. Guys got cut. Okay? You guys want to make them professionals that don't cry when we find out that teams are telling them. Now, is there a right way and a wrong way to do it? Yes. But that's the new reality of college football. And sometimes you process guys out by not telling them they don't have a spot, but by telling them you're going to make $25,000, even though you're making $200,000 last year. You know what they're going to do. But now you're putting the onus on them. I don't like it. I'd rather they just be men about it. And then sometimes I think they were, but that's the new world we live in. But you think about it, as we mentioned earlier, Trev, Josh Burnham is really the only guy that jumped in that was going to be a starter in 2026. And, I mean, everybody else that left was normal losses that you have. Billy Schrouth going pro, Neil Wagner going pro, not coming back for a fifth year. They weren't juniors jumping in. They were underclassmen. I mean, they were seniors. They could have come back for a fifth year. They weren't underclassmen like Joe Alt and Blake Fisher and guys like that. So that's normal attrition. Jeremiah Love going pro, that's normal attrition. Jordarian Price. I mean, we expected those things, but they didn't have a ton of guys like that. But there was no rumblings about Leonard Moore maybe jumping in. There were no rumblings about Jordan Faison or Charles Jagasaw or Boubacar or Drake Bowen or Jaden Alsbury or there wasn't that talk. Tay Johnson and Don Schuler. I mean, people had their fears, but there was never any real information. So that's what I like it. So,
yeah. I mean, sidebar, it is amazing to me that they didn't lose a single player from the offensive line room. Now, I understand that there's still like a day and a half left in the portal, so I don't want to.
Other than the two NFL guys and graduates, that surprises me.
But
it does show, Trev, that the power of the Notre Dame degree is still very strong, even in this era of the transfer portal.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's on one hand, it's unfortunate that teams across the country, this isn't specific to Notre Dame, have to re-recruit their rosters every single year. That's a new reality of what college football is. But to your point, the kids that made these decisions to go to Notre Dame still remember at their core when they were 16, 17, 18 years old and signing on the dotted line to come to Notre Dame, they still, to a degree, no pun intended, remember why they still wanted to come to South Bend. Now, I think that's absolutely huge. Some of my other takeaways from this portal talk was I talked at the time that I love the hire of Mike Martin. And right now, things are still TBD because it was his first portal cycle. And this last recruiting class was his first recruiting class cycle. And it still wasn't even like a full, complete cycle. But he played a part in them signing the number one recruiting class in the country. I talked about the benefits of his experience in the NFL and bringing that to the table. And that was another thing that Marcus Freeman talked about. But what I had overlooked is that it's not a copy-paste. College football is making the transition and becoming in certain ways more like the NFL, but it's not the exact same. We used the track analogy before, and it's, we use the marathon, not a sprint. And even I think Tim O'Malley today in the show or in the press conference kind of made that analogy. It was like, hey, it's not really a marathon. It's more of a miler, and so yeah, exactly.
I was sitting right behind Tim. And Tim's my guy. I love Tim O'Malley. He's a good friend. And I wanted to hit him in the back and be like 400. It's the 400, because that's it. I was like, no, let me not do that right now. Let me not mess with Tim when he's talking. But his point is what we were saying in the show the other day. It's not a sprint and it's not a marathon. It's something in between. And you got to handle it differently than anything you've ever experienced. Because even then, last year, if you didn't do what you needed to do in the winter, you always had to spring to make up for it. Now, if you don't do it now, this is who we are.
And that's the unfortunate reality, man. I'll stick with the track analogies. I view it more like the 300-meter hurdles because there's so many different variables that go into this. It's not just you, and it's not just your pace. It's not just the open track in front of you. You have other obstacles that you have to overcome as well on your way to getting to the finish line. I love the results that it yielded, but some things have to be done differently in future seasons. And Freeman also alluded to that as well. He also said, hey, we're always going to continue evaluating this thing. Like, we're always going to look for ways to improve. He was like, that's what I do as a head coach. Every single year, I talk to different people. That's something that we're going to get into here in a second. But he uses so many different resources to find ways to improve, despite yielding the results that he wanted. I mean, they made it to the national championship game last year. They didn't copy and paste what they did from 24 to 25. Some things better, obviously some things worse because they didn't make the playoffs this year. And so I expect him to do the same exact things with the transfer portal. It yielded the results that they wanted to. Everything will always be under evaluation. They're always going to look for different ways to elevate it. And that's something that he touched on too. And that's one thing that I really appreciate about Coach Freeman is it's never just good enough. The fact that it is with the portal in this age of college football being what it is now, is whatever teams are doing this year are what other teams are going to look back on and say, hey, well, this program did this. Maybe we should try this. People are just paving new roads. And a lot of different schools are taking a lot of different approaches. And so it's way too early to tell what's correct and what isn't. And that's what makes this so challenging. So in all of the conversations that Brian and I have had and that we've had to have with each other and that we've had in this show about having to stay calm and just let it all play out and we'll see how this goes, that's kind of what fed into it because there's nothing that we can look back on and say, hey, this is how it should be done. We've never seen a one portal window in this day and age of college football. And that's something that Marcus Freeman talked about that I appreciated as well. I thought that was very interesting when talking about the process. But then in that, he also talked about their number one priority was retaining who they had. Mm-hmm. That tells me they understand how talented this roster is.
Yeah. Again, some of that was a little bit of spin. We were patients. I'm just going to tell you all right now, they were not – how the first week went was not according to plan. Like, it wasn't. And anybody trying to tell you that is giving you spin. But that's life. I mean, if you're down 14-7 at halftime, you're like, well, these coaches suck. We're firing everybody and we're benching everybody because we're down 14-7 at halftime. Thank God coaches don't actually do that.
Right.
You know, hey, let's make some adjustments. Let's get back on track and let's finish strong. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the score was at the end of the first quarter. What matters is what the score is at the end of the game. As I mentioned, you know, like when we were making this analogy last week, imagine if you stopped watching the Notre Dame-Stanford game in 2024 at the end of the first quarter. You'd walk away from that game pretty mad. But you'd have missed the next 49 unanswered points that Notre Dame scored.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, who cares if they were down 7-0? Now there's things hey, look, what did we do to not come out locked in and prepared, right? So you also don't look at it and underreact to it. You don't say, hey, no big deal that we were losing to Stanford 7-0. We won 49-7, because you do that against Ohio State, somebody. You may not be able to come back in the same manner. Notre Dame would have had a lot tougher time coming back against Georgia if they were down 13-3 instead of up 13-3 at halftime. Against Stanford, I'd be like, they're going to be fine. They're going to end up putting 35 on this team in the second half. And then they probably would have. So the point is, you don't overreact to a rough start, but you also don't pretend like it didn't happen. And I'm quite confident that they recognize that. It's that, yeah, we were not as prepared as we needed to be. And that's the reality. And there's somebody in the chat that just likes to be contrarian and likes to spin things. But I'm telling you, this isn't a question. This isn't a read. They were not happy with how things went at the beginning of the portal. You can pretend and tell yourself that they chose not to take certain guys. And in some cases, that is true. There were guys out there that people thought Notre Dame was going after that they didn't really like. But the fact is, this isn't a guess. This is a fact. They did miss on guys early. The process was bungled a little bit early. They had mistakes. The point is, now that we look back and the success is there, we don't pretend and spin and say, oh no, this was always the plan. We wanted to fall behind to Penn State 10-3 at halftime. We did that on purpose because we wanted to give Penn State a false sense of security, so that in the second half, we would do this. No, that's not how it works. And it's okay to say they didn't handle this well early. They were unprepared for this, and be like, look, Mike Martin's first go-around in the portal didn't go swimmingly. A guy that spent his entire career in the National Football League didn't knock out of the park the first week of the portal. He didn't. They weren't prepared. They had mistakes with transcripts and who's coming, who's not coming, who's communicating, who's not communicating. They did struggle. They deserve to be criticized for that, just like they deserve to be praised for rallying the troops together, getting on track, and making sure when the second wave came, they were way better prepared. And so while we can be critical of, dude, you guys had a rough start, we should also look back and say, great job of recovering on that and
100%.
Finishing strong. Both things are true.
It's the same conversation we had about Notre Dame's defense this year. How they finished the season did not negate how poorly it was ran in the start of the season. But you can't just be in either side of the camp. You can say Notre Dame's defense finished the year elite, and their faults on defense earlier in the season was a leading factor as to why they didn't make the college football playoffs. Both things can be true. We had to have those same diffusing conversations with the defense this season. It was Chris Ash is exonerated. No, he's not. Their defense allowed 41 points. That was the most points allowed in Notre Dame Stadium in like a decade. That doesn't just get washed away because you shut down Syracuse. But with that being said, you also can't let that distract you from the fact that they were lights out the final 7 games of the regular season. So to your point, Brian, both things can absolutely be true. They can
and we can be grown up enough to say that. We don't have to spin everything into pro Notre Dame, everything is awesome type of spin. We can say, yeah, they dropped the ball on that one. but then say, but good job bouncing back. Good job recovering. Yeah, man, Notre Dame didn't get Dante Moore out of high school. That's a bummer. But what did they? But they went and got CJ. It's okay to say, that. But Marcus Freeman doesn't need to say that to the media. He doesn't need to say that to fans. He does that behind the scenes. And then to publicly, hey, great job by Mike Martin and the staff. Because at the end of the day, what a great job they did to rally. And the thing is, too, is they knew that they could rally after dropping the ball because they knew another wave was coming. And because here's the thing, when we were in the midst of Notre Dame struggling, we told you guys they're struggling. But what did we also say? But take a deep breath because there's some guys who haven't got in the portal yet that Notre Dame is going to be all over once they do. So calm down. It's okay to admit that this wasn't good, but calm down. They're going to rally, and they rallied. And because I said, what? This is still Notre Dame, and this is still a program led by Marcus Freeman. And so, no, I don't care that Mike Martin didn't perfectly nail the entire first time, because what he taught me is once he kind of figured it out, okay, now we're ready to go. Let's get all the troops. Let's get everybody on the same page, and let's go rock with it. And they finished great. That's what matters. That's what matters. And not every guy they missed on was a mistake by the coaches. I don't want to get into a bidding war for Nick Marsh. I would not have from what I was told he got offered. Good for Nick Marsh. Congrats, brother. But I'm not paying that. I'm okay with what not every miss is you guys dropped the ball. You guys lost Ian Strong to Cal. No, they didn't. They never made a play for Ian Strong. They were going to bring him in for a visit, but that wasn't a top guy. You made a run at another guy. He wasn't interested. That's life. That happens on the recruiting trail. But there were drop balls that were dropped. What we can do as fans is we can sometimes overreact to every miss and act like somehow the coaching staff did something wrong. The other one is we can underreact and spin everything into no. Well, what'd you want him to do? Get into a bidding war with Texas Tech? I didn't say that. But you know what? If it's at a position that could determine whether or not you win a championship next year, then you freaking give that kid an extra $1 million. If that's what you think if he's the best guy for the job. But even then, you can make a decision not getting into a bidding war, but still say you put yourself into a situation where it even became a bidding war because you shouldn't have even put yourself in there. You should have had this locked up in day one, like what you did with other kids where it doesn't even get to become a bidding war. They didn't get into a bidding war with Malachi Fields and Riley Leonard. Do you know why? Because they had those deals done before they even got to that point in time. But what a great job by Mike Martin and his staff to rally and finish with the last week of the portal was just as good as the first week was bad and maybe better. I mean, the last week of the portal has been an absolute grand slam home run. That's what I'm saying. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can say, hey, man, lesson learned for a guy. And I'd be a lot more like, dude needs to lose his job if this is like his third portal cycle and he's still doing this crap. But it took him 5 days to get back on track and figure it out. And I think that was a great job, an absolute great job. Because, again, he came from the NFL. There's going to be lessons learned. There's going to be bumps in the road. Chad Bowden had to kind of deal with that his first full cycle on the recruiting trail when he was just the defensive recruiting coordinator, right? Marcus Freeman had some bumps in the road his first year as D coordinator. Remember the Florida State game where he sent in the wrong call and they went for an 80-yard touchdown? You know what I mean? Like, do you remember Marcus Freeman's first year when he lost to Stanford and Marshall? Right? Like, when you're in a new position, you're going to have some bumps in the road, but do you learn from them? Do you get better? And does the result end up being what you needed to be? And it was.
Yep.
It was. And I'm much more encouraged. I'll be honest with you, Trev. They rallied a lot better than I thought they were going to rally.
Agreed. Yes.
Because I shared with you some of the things that were going on. And the way that they kind of got everybody on the same page, had good communication, and then went back out was grand slam home run.
It was almost a microcosm of what the 2025 football season was, man. It's like it started off and it's like, can things get much worse? How much better can they get? It's like, oh, it can get significantly better and significantly better very, very quickly. I mean, when they were 1-2 and gave up 30 points to Purdue, I was like, I sent out a tweet that was like, Notre Dame's offense is just going to have to prepare to score 50 points a game.
Mm-hmm.
And then the following week, they held Arkansas to 13.
Mm-hmm.
And then the week after that, they held Boise State to 7. Then the week after that, they held NC State to 7. And then the week after that, they held a high-powered USC offense to 24. And so on and so forth, and we know how the season unfolded. But how they were in the portal was almost, like I said, it was a microcosm of how the regular season went. Hopefully now all the lessons that need to be learned have been learned, or at least for the most part. They can now put this behind them. Their roster is going to be set soon. And we get to talk very, very soon about the 2026 football season, man. It's going to be great.
Yes. Yes. Because you did need to, however, forget that we've talked about the process, right? We're done. Well, I'll share some things about what went wrong on the message board. I'm not going to get into it in the show, but it's behind us. We now know what they're going to do. And as I said earlier, I don't think they're done yet. I do think there's one more player they're going to add. And we're going to look back and be like, if you just look at the end result, dude, it's going to be exciting. It's kind of like looking at the final score of a football game and not really looking at the fact of how it got there. Just that's the final score. And at the end of the day, you need to have more points than the other team. At the end of the day, this portal class is going to be outstanding from Mike Martin and his staff. And the coaches obviously played a bigger role in it down the road, but he still led this deal.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the key. You know, that's the key is they needed a strong portal class, not a big one. They needed to add some impact talent at D tackle. They added one. They kept a pretty good player, and I feel that they're in a good position to add another one at that position. And, you know, they didn't need DBs, but by getting the ones they got, they made that room stronger. They didn't need 2 receivers, but they brought them both in, and they're big-time players. You know, they're at least big-time talents. They needed a kicker, and they went out and got, according to Vince and a couple other people I've talked to, arguably the best or one of the 2 to 3 best out there. And the kicker one is actually one where they did that. They might have handled that better than any other one because they just didn't love the ones that were out there. And there were some reports that they had already landed their kicker. That wasn't true. They had a couple guys that had said they wanted to come, but they didn't want to just take a good kicker that wanted to come. They were looking for something a little bit different, you know. And their patience allowed them to end up landing the kid from Purdue. So, receivers won. They didn't panic at receiver. They didn't overbid to get Nick Marsh, who I know they liked but didn't love. So, like, there were some positives in this process too, but there, especially on the D line, there was a lot of missteps. But who, at the end of the day, they got Keon Keeley, Francis Brew, and hopefully they can go add, the defensive tackle from Oregon who visits tomorrow. So I'm very excited about how the process went, because at the end of the day in recruiting, what truly matters for the upcoming season is the end result.
Yeah.
The fixing the process, that's something that you worry about for next January. What matters for right now for this upcoming football team is at the end of the day, whether you were behind 14-0 in the first quarter or not, did you win 42-14, right? That's what matters. Like, I feel like this portal is like Super Bowl 20, was it 22? Probably my worst Super Bowl experience ever as a Broncos fan. You know, Broncos jump up 10-0, then fall behind, end up next 42 points, right? Like the Broncos in this scenario, the Notre Dame is the Redskins, right? Like they fell behind 10-0. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter because they won 42-10. That's what matters. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I'm excited about the end result. It's what they needed. It really is the kind of class they needed, especially on the D-line, if they can finish off the way I think they're going to finish off.
Sticking with the common theme of talking about some bumps in the road, Marcus Freeman was also asked about the USC rivalry and the discontinuation. And it's actually Angelo DiCarlo brought up a funny point in the press conference. He's like, hey, so much has happened that it took us 30 minutes into this press conference to get a first question in there about the Notre Dame USC rivalry and coming to an end. And that was something that he talked about. And also in the spirit of not airing things out public facing. I could tell that Marcus Freeman had some other comments to say when he was asked about USC and the comments that they made. But in typical Marcus Freeman fashion, he answered it professionally, which is, I would expect nothing less. And I don't mean that to sound negative. But he talked about how he still believes that it should be continued. And he has faith in the people that are in charge of getting this back on the schedule at some point down the road. He has faith that they will. Also expressed his disappointment about the rivalry coming to an end. And I appreciated the window into the scheduling piece, because Marcus Freeman went back and said, hey, look, I said that I would play them anywhere, any place, anytime, but I also have a responsibility to this football team. And I have a responsibility to set us up for success, as well as the leadership at USC has a responsibility to set their program up for success. And moving a game for our team from week 12, the final week of the regular season, to week 0 would not have been advantageous to our football team. And I respected that window in from Freeman for sure.
Yeah, I just his face when he was asked about USC. And it was a great question by Tyler James, by the way. And I thought Tyler asked it really well. Like, Tyler's question was great, because he said the fact that we're just now kind of getting to this question shows how much has happened in the last month. You know what I mean? Like, we're not even talking about USC Notre Dame because of all the crazy stuff that has happened in the last month. But I thought that was a great question by Tyler. But you could tell he feels a certain way about it, and I'll just leave it at that. And all I'll say is this: Lincoln Riley better pray that USC is not in the Notre Dame bracket in the playoffs the next couple of years. That's all I'm going to say. But I love the fact that he did say, we're going to get that one back.
Yeah.
We're going to get that rivalry back, and that was good to hear. I think he knows, like, look, the current leadership is the problem at USC, but they may not be there that much longer.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree with Jason Rose. He said he wanted to really go off on Lincoln Riley and USC, but bit his tongue and took the high road. I think that was very obvious from his body language.
Yeah. Yeah. He had that same smile of when Adon Schuler or Jack Kaiser got called for defensive pass interference against Penn State. That like infamous gif of him like,
yep, it's you again. Same guys as last week. Yeah.
Had that same face. And I'm with you. He definitely wanted to add a little bit to that, but in typical Freeman fashion, he took the high road. That's for sure.
Yep.
Obviously, one of the last things that we're going to talk about here from Freeman's press conference is the talk around the NFL buzz. And he got asked, I would argue ad nauseum, about the NFL and his future at Notre Dame and what the outlook was. And he gave a bunch of different answers, all saying the same thing ultimately.
Because he kept getting asked basically the same question over and over again.
Exactly.
Like, what's he going to do? Like, well, now that you've asked me a third time, here's the answer. Now, I was lying. I was lying to you guys the first 2 times, but I just can't lie a third time. I mean, just look, here's what I took out of that, Trev. Number one is the biggest thing is he said, I'm absolutely committed to this job. I thought it was interesting. I think there's merit to this, because now, like, is this the entire truth? I don't know. I'll just say that. I don't know. When he talks about, I met with GMs and I'm wanting to learn things about what they view as a good head coach. And he had the reason I can believe that there's something to that is because he's done that in the past. I mean, this is the same guy that spent time on wasn't like an aircraft carrier or destroyer or something like that. Because he wanted to learn about leadership and building a team and things like that. He's done things like he sought counsel from not your typical. I mean, he's met with coaches and things like that, but he sought counsel from different types of people on leadership and building a program and kind of how are we perceived? And what are some things you see from other great coaches? And I do believe there's something to that. I don't think Marcus Freeman has zero interest in the NFL, but he just wants to pick the brains of the GMs, and that's why he talks to them. You know what I mean? Like, we're not naive. But at the end of the day, all I really care about is he's going to be the head coach in 2026. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And there was I think a super chat question about that. I'll just bring up now as kind of part of the conversation. B Straw says, "I thank you for super chat. I wish someone would have asked if Marcus signed an extension during the press conference. We already know the answer to that, so there's no need to bring that up. That's already been reported, and we already know that that's a yes. But I understand why he wants the question asked, right? It's in order to get it on record. But Sergeant Steve said, if this is repeat, sorry guys. Thank you for the super chat, Steve. How confident are you and Marcus Freeman staying beyond the short term? How long and why? I'm a lot happier now. You guys are the best. I'm so grateful for you. Appreciate you, Steve. Here's all I'll tell you guys. I am confident that Marcus Freeman is going to be the head football coach in 26 and is completely 100% focused on being the head football coach in Notre Dame in 2026. And I've said this to you guys last week. I say it to you again. I don't have a lot of hope that Marcus Freeman is going to be a lifer at Notre Dame, but things change. I also know that Marcus Freeman, and I mean this actually in a good way, Marcus Freeman gets in his feels a lot when it comes to when things don't go his way. He gets real mad and he tries to channel it in the right way. We've seen that. And I think that's one of the things that works for him. This isn't a criticism. But sometimes when things like that can happen, you may feel a certain way about something that in 2 weeks, when you've kind of been able to come down from it, you feel a little bit different way about it. I never felt like Marcus Freeman leaving after this season and before 26 was ever going to be a thing. Did I get nervous about it at times? Yeah. I mean, you keep being told this over and over and over again by people that are allegedly credible. You start to believe it. But I think you guys are just going to have to buckle up and understand that this is just going to be something you're going to have to deal with every offseason. And he made a great point. If we're not having this conversation, that probably means we're not doing well. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, if you just came out and said, hey, listen, there's no better job in America than this. The Cowboys, the Raiders, there's no better job at Notre Dame, and this is where I plan to spend the rest of my career. He could say that, but I don't think he believes that. And I don't want him to lie to me. Just tell me where you are. And so I do think there's a level of attraction at the current moment that, maybe down the road, that might be something I'm interested in. Competitors a lot of times think that, but that doesn't mean that's what he's going to feel a year from now. And that's why I really don't care about talking about it anymore until we're having to address the same thing a year from now.
Yep.
And because we had to deal with it last year, the Bears, we dealt with it this offseason. And if Marcus Freeman's not being talked about by the NFL next year, it's because Notre Dame went like 8-4, 9-3, and wasn't that good of a football team compared to what they should have been. And the shine is, the bloom is off the rose, so to speak. So we're just going to have to understand, folks, that that's part of it. But what I do know about Marcus Freeman is this. Once he commits to something, he's not going to be distracted by other stuff. Now that he's kind of got that process out of the way, had his conversations, now that he is locked into this Notre Dame football team, and all of that happened while the players were away from school on Christmas break, all that kind of stuff. Now that they're back, I do believe Marcus Freeman can compartmentalize those type of things where, like, look, I made my decision, and all I care about right now is going out there and winning a championship. And then you can figure the rest stuff out later. And honestly, I'm not upset about that. If I just needed to be committed to this team. Do I want him to be a lifer at Notre Dame? Absolutely. I don't think there's a better job in America. But it doesn't matter what I think. It only matters what he thinks. And right now, all I can tell you guys is right now, there's not a doubt in my mind that Marcus Freeman is not 100% focused and committed to making this 2026 football team the best that it can be. And the danger with that is if you are thinking I'm one and done, and there's nothing that's going to change my mind, I think they probably would have hit the portal a little bit differently. I don't know that there would have been the concerted effort if you definitely no questions asked. I'm absolutely no question out. This is my last year at Notre Dame. I don't think you go out and get Mylan Graham and Quincy Portal at receiver. You fight a lot harder to get Reed Harris. You fight a lot harder to get Nick Marsh. You maybe even bring in Ian Strong because you know what he can do. He's proven. The fact that you brought in two guys with 10 career catches tells me, yeah, you're banking on upside for 2026, but you also have a bigger plan in mind. So that's why I keep telling people, guys, I don't know if Marcus Freeman's going to leave or not, but I don't think Marcus Freeman is going to do things that aren't going to be what he feels are best for the program. Now, again, I think there's some things he doesn't do that are best for the program, but that's also a version of him being honest. I don't know that I can commit to this right now. So I'm not going to go give you a fake statement and then leave in a week and a half. I don't think that's who Marcus Freeman is. He's going to do his due diligence, and when he's made his decision, he's okay. I'm back. Let's go do this. I actually respect that. I don't love it because what I want as a fan is for Marcus Freeman to say, "I'm never leaving here." And my hope is that over the next year, that's what kind of gets into his heart and mind. Like, why would I ever want to go anywhere else? It's a pretty great place, pretty great community, great place to raise my family. And I could go to the NFL next year and they could love me and think I'm the man. But if we go 3-14, I'm gone. And now I got to uproot my kids again. Dude, you could go to the Super Bowl next year and be out of a job in 2 years after that. Didn't the Eagles win a Super Bowl last year? Weren't they?
Yeah.
I'm hearing people talking about Nick Sirianni needs to be fired. A year later. Now, I'm not a big Nick Sirianni fan, but that's a different story for a different day. But you get my point, Trev?
Yeah.
Do you know how bad you'd have to be for multiple seasons in a row to get fired at Notre Dame? I mean, Brian Kelly went 4-8 and kept his job. Like, maybe that's what wins the day in the end, but I don't know. So I just refuse to spend the next year sweating whether or not he's going to be here beyond next year. I know Notre Dame fans, I can tell you one thing with as much confidence as if I've ever said anything on the show that's about something that's not my own personal opinion or what I'm going to do. I am 1,000% confident that Marcus Freeman, as of right now, and will be until the 2026 football season is over, is focused on one thing and one thing only, and that's making this 2026 football team the best it can be. And that's what I'm going to sit back and evaluate and enjoy until the 2026 football season is over. And then we can deal with whatever comes next.
Folks, that's going to do it for part 1 of today's show. But don't go anywhere. We are wrapping up today with a mailbag. We already have 22 questions in there. Be sure to get yours in. But before we get there, you guys know what to do. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that notification bell, share this podcast. But as always, the best way to support what we do here is subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. All right, Brian, to wrap up today's show here on the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, we got a mailbag to take us home. And if this does happen to be your first one, put a little MB for mailbag behind your question or a little mailbox emoji in front of your question. Lets us know to set that question aside. Can't go forever. There's obviously an evening show coming up as well. So if you want your question answered, you can always feel free to put in a super chat. Those get bumped to the top.
You ready? You ready for super chats, Trev?
Always.
I think I just said super chats. That's my bad. Super chats, Trev.
I am not ready for those. I am ready for super chats.
Yes, we don't want any of those. Let's get started. We got B-Straw. We brought this up earlier, but I wanted to thank B-Straw for the super chat, just like I wanted to thank Sergeant Steve for the super chat that you guys gave earlier that we brought up before. But we'll get to Tyler Evans, who always gives us good super chats. And Tyler, just wanted to thank you too, man. I love how you always have questions about ball, something about football or college football, and we greatly appreciate that.
Appreciate you, Tyler. What is your favorite Charlie Partridge D line he has coached, and could this be his best defensive line this upcoming year?
Well, it has a chance to be I would argue it's the most talented offensive line he's ever coached.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's really a lot of doubt about that. Is most talented? I'd say the most talented D-line he probably ever coached is probably 2019. He had Jalen Twyman, he had Patrick Jones, he had Deslin Alexander, Amir Watts, and Habakkuk Baldonado. What a name that is. That D-line was like, so their top 5 D linemen, this is their tackle for loss numbers for their top 6 D linemen. Now, keep in mind, in 2025 for Notre Dame, 2025, just want to give you some context, guys. Notre Dame's leader in tackles for loss by a defensive tackle is 3.5. The top tackle for loss numbers for your top 5 defensive linemen was 11, 6, 3.5, 3.5, 3, and 2. The top 6 defensive linemen from 2019, tackle for loss numbers, 12, 12, 10.5, 7, 5.5, 4. That's pretty good defensive line.
Yeah, that ain't bad.
And 2 of those guys for sure got drafted high. I know Patrick got drafted high, and I know Twyman got drafted high. Let me just look for Jalen Twyman, he got drafted. He was a 6th-round draft pick. Patrick Jones was a 3rd-round draft pick. And I don't know that Deslin got drafted. Deslin Alexander didn't get drafted. Let's see here. There's the Pitt team. You had Amir Watts. Let's see if Watts got drafted. He didn't get drafted. And then Habakkuk, let's see if he got drafted. That would be a no. So you had that production, and only 2 of those guys got drafted. What's he going to do with a defensive line that has Boubacar Traore, Bryce Young, Keon Keeley, Francis Brew, Chris Burgess, Rodney Dunham, Ebenezer Utade,
Armel Mukum.
Armel Mukum, Cole Mullins, Tiki Hole, Elijah Golden, did I say Cole Mullins yet? Davion Dixon, Sean. I mean, this is certainly, will it be his best D-line? I don't know. I mean, he had a pretty good D-line in, 2010 with that Watt dude. What was his name, Trev? J.J. Watt, right? Didn't he go to the NFL? And he was okay, right? In the NFL, he was a decent player in the NFL.
He was solid.
He was okay. He was solid. I think from a depth standpoint and a high-end talent standpoint, I think this is going to be the most talented defensive line he's going to coach.
Absolutely.
I think the only other defensive line he ever coaches more talented is probably the Colts.
I mean, honestly,
and that's at least debatable. You know what I mean? So yeah. You agree, Trev?
I do.
Good.
Super chat from Coin Hound. Appreciate you. Very unproven depth behind Carr. How much confidence do you have in Hebert and Grubbs as backups compared to Minchie in 25? Are they as talented, or does Carr injury doom the 2026 season?
Well, look, I don't care who they got out of the portal. Look, I think CJ Carr is going to be the best quarterback in college football next year. So there's literally no one that they could bring in that was going to do what he did. I think he's the number 1 quarterback in the country. Doesn't mean there weren't portal guys who could help, but knowing they were going to get in the portal, and he kind of addressed this during the thing. He was like, we looked at it, and they did look at quarterbacks, but they just didn't find anybody that they felt was good enough to take reps away from Blake Hebert, Noah Grubbs, and also Teddy Gerard, who's going to be here in the summer and be a part of the 2026 football team. So I just think they looked at it as like, if there's a guy out there that could come in and be that guy and justify us not giving the kind of reps we need to give to the young guys, he better be a good football player. And they just decided, hey, let's coach up the kids we have. It's a similar decision to what they made last year, where we could go to the portal and get somebody, but we trust CJ and Kenny and guys like that. And listen, here's the reality. Blake Hebert played about as much last year as CJ Carr played in 2024.
Yeah.
So what was our point then? Well, I don't care how much CJ Carr played in 2024. The talent's there. Coach him up. Let him go play. Now, Blake is not as advanced mentally or technically as CJ, but he doesn't have to beat CJ. And so I'd much rather give them a chance, because here's the deal, man. You can't get guys experience if you keep recruiting older players to take those spots because they don't have experience. Because otherwise we're going to be going into Blake's senior year like, well, he hasn't played a lot of football. Well, yeah, because you keep recruiting guys ahead of him that are just game managers because you want a veteran game manager to put in front of them. So I think that's it. And you look like what LSU did in the portal. I thought what LSU did in the portal the last couple of days was outstanding. They went out and got Sam Levitt for 2026. But then they also went and got Hassan Longstreet from USC, who's a true freshman, to sit for a year behind Sam Levitt or be ready if Sam's time come. And then you go, he'll be the next guy. Why didn't Notre Dame do that? They did. Those guys' names are Blake Hebert, Noah Grubbs, and Teddy Gerard. They're just not a portal kid.
Yeah, I'm going to echo what you said in the show last night. Are they doomed in 2026 if Carr gets hurt? I don't know the answer to that question. Maybe. I thought Notre Dame was pretty doomed in 2015 when Malik went down.
Yep.
You just never know what you have behind you until their hand is forced. But to your point, what you said last night, there's nobody in the portal that could replace CJ Carr. So it's kind of, I don't want to say irrelevant. That sounds harsh, but it's not like they could have gone out and gotten anybody else that is CJ Carr. How are they compared to Minchie? They're all talented quarterbacks. Are either of them going to be where Kenny Minchie was in 2025? I have no idea. Probably not. Kenny Minchie was a redshirt sophomore. He's in his third year in the program. Blake Hebert's going to be a redshirt freshman, and behind him are two true freshmen, one of them reclassified. But I wouldn't lose too much sleep over what if Carr goes down. Do they have to rely on, like, there's a doomsday scenario for every single position group that we could play out. I just don't think that it's worth it. Not right now. There will be a lot of time to talk about what needs to happen in the offseason. I've talked a lot about what Mike Brown has to do. Gino Guidugli can't just hang his hat on. Steve looked good at Syracuse when he left, and CJ had a great season as a redshirt freshman. My job is done. No, you got to continue to build up the other guys around you. That's how I'm going to gauge Gino Guidugli this offseason. What work do you put in with Blake Hebert, Noah Grubbs, and Teddy Gerard? Your job's not finished by a long shot. So that's going to be huge for them moving forward.
Good stuff.
Super chat from Benny J. Appreciate you. Which two freshman, sophomore, transfer players on each side of the ball do each of you believe have the most potential to make a big leap forward and making 2026 a special year?
Well, if I can pick two, I mean, you only really have two of those guys on each side of the ball. I mean, so offensively, it's Quincy Porter and Mylan Graham. I think they have immense talent and could take a jump. And then defensively, I mean, Jaden Sanders, I think, has a young guy that has a chance to take a jump. And if they get the kid from Oregon, I think he's a guy that's just now tapping into he was a redshirt freshman this year. He's just now tapping into his potential. And I did put an update on him on the board. For those who are on the board, somebody asked a question about him, so I put a little bit of an update on where I think things stand with that one. But I mean, those would be the two. Look, I think all the guys that they got out of the portal can take jumps, including Francis Brew, including DJ McKinney, who's a senior. But you watch a fifth-year senior. But you watch DJ McKinney play, Trev. He still needs a lot of technical work, and he's basically going to be playing for, in my opinion, the best technical DB coach in all of college football.
Agreed.
In Mike Mickens.
I read that. I don't know if this would change your answer at all. I read this as freshman or sophomore or transfer player on each side of the ball. Well, so I don't know if that changes your answer.
It doesn't, because the other part of the answer we answered last night.
Okay.
We kind of talked about, like, I look at guys like James Flanagan. I look at guys like Will Black.
Yeah.
Guys like that. Defensively, we talked about, Mad Faramo. We talked about Armo Mukum, guys like that coming in. And then, we didn't talk about him last night, but, like, I'm really looking forward to seeing what Mark Zachary and Dallas Golden do this offseason as well. Those are young guys. So if that's how the question was intended, that would be my answer for that. I'd focus on the transfer part of it. But those are the players that I would look at, the young guys. And there's a lot of talented young players that could Elijah Burst make that jump? Could Cam Williams make that jump? Can Micah Gilbert make that jump? There's a lot. When you recruit the way that Notre Dame has recruited since Marcus Freeman's arrived, you get excited about those guys, and you're like, which ones are going to make the jump? Could Cole Mullins make that jump this offseason? And you start getting a little bit fired up. Is Logan Thomas going to be able to stay healthy and get stronger? And could he be a guy? I mean, we're talking about Keon Keeley, Bryce Young, Logan Thomas, the incoming freshman. Boubacar Traore, and then the incoming freshman. I'm looking forward to seeing what Logan Thomas is going to be if he can stay healthy this offseason as well. And that's what I love about his team, Trev. I don't think people outside Notre Dame fans get this. I don't think fans outside around the country truly understand. I think there's one fan base that watched how Notre Dame played in the second half of the championship game and watched how Notre Dame just annihilated everybody they played and is like, dude, that team is legit. And you know who that fan base is? Ohio State fans. I've never seen more complimentary things said about Notre Dame from a fan base ever, even Navy fans, than things I've heard from Ohio State fans in our chat and on Twitter. Like, y'all can keep hating on Notre Dame, but that team is legit. They get it. Now, they're legit too. And I think that's why they don't fear Notre Dame the way that other fan bases, like, yeah, they're legit. We still beat them 3 times in a row, but guys, that team's legit. And yeah,
they're legit because they know what legitimacy looks like.
That's right.
That's
right.
What that is.
Right. And they also know what the Notre Dame team they played in 22 look like compared to the Notre Dame team they played in 24 look like. And they're like, yeah, that ain't the same team. That's a very different football team. Yeah. Yeah. I love the super chat from my guy, Clayton. He says, I'm just here for the super chats. Great show, fellas. I'm never going to live that one down. That's like Trev and the transcontinental, rivalry that made it all the way to the Here Come the Irish.
Yeah, now it's imprinted on Peacock. Not only is it on the podcast platform and YouTube, it is now on Peacock. So to whoever that gentleman was, that writer for CBS Sports that talked about it, my apologies if I'm where you heard that.
Yes. He's like, that freaking Trevor Trowbridge guy put it in my head. It's like Driscoll and Francisco Mendoza. You just can't stop saying it wrong. Just can't help it. Can't help it.
Super chat from D-Troll Hunter. Appreciate you, man. Brian's headset button fun.
It's not my headset. So it's like it's a thing on StreamYard that there's like a little mic looking thing, and you click it to mute yourself, and you click, and I was clicking on it and it wouldn't unmute myself. It wouldn't unmute me. So yeah, it's a mouse. Blame the mouse. That's who I blame. I take no responsibility at all for my actions. I'm going to blame the mouse. That's how I roll.
Super chat from Tyler Evans. Appreciate you. What do you think of Dante Moore staying at Oregon? And I don't blame him because I would not want to be the quarterback of the New York Jets.
Facts. Well, this is honestly where the NIL is good for college football.
Yeah.
If NIL wasn't a thing, Dante Moore's gone. And he'd be stupid not to go. It's like, dude, you're getting scholarship money. You're the number 2 pick of the NFL draft. You're guaranteed. Who was the number 2 pick last year? Do you remember, Trev?
Gosh.
The 2025 NFL draft. Who was the number 2 pick in last year's draft? Let's just say Travis Hunter. Let's look at because actually the number 1 pick will be closer to what the number 2 pick is this year. So let's look at Cam Ward's salary. He was the number 1 quarterback taken last year with the number 1 overall pick. He had a total value of $48.7 million over 4 years, a signing bonus of $32 million, an average annual value of $12.2 million, and his contract was fully guaranteed. You don't turn that down to come back to go to school for free. But now Dante can get, Lloyd's of London insurance, or if they still have that, but like that type of thing. But he's also going to make millions of dollars next year, to where God forbid something happen and he gets hurt and he's not the same prospect, or he just plays terribly and he's not the same prospect. He's still a millionaire. And hopefully he's done enough to prepare himself for his future, and with investments and different things like that, that money's not going to be gone by the time he's 25. And the reason that's good for college football is because you get a very talented quarterback of one of the best teams in the country gets to come back, and we get to see him play next year. But it's also great for Dante Moore because he's 19 years old. He's about to turn 20. I don't think he's 20 years old yet. Let me look at that. I'm pretty sure that
I did not know that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he just turned 20 in this past year. He turned 20 in May, which means he's going to be 20 all of next season. And he won't be 21 until after the draft. He could use another year. He also isn't to that. I think the markers changed a little bit now because seasons are longer, but I like guys to have 2 full seasons as starters, and Dante really has 1. He started part of his freshman year. I think he needs the physical growth. He needs to keep getting stronger. He's still got a very young body. He needs the more experience as a player. And you could see some of his struggles in the postseason. And people say, well, he's not a big game player. No, it's nonsense, because Dante had some regular season games that were outstanding. What we saw in the playoffs was his game still needs work. Not that he's not a clutch player, not a big moment player. His game still needs work. And the fact that he gets to come back, go through that experience, protect himself financially with what will be some pretty big NIL deals, I think it's great for Dante. It's great for his present and future. It's great for Oregon, and it's great for the game. Take the I'm a Notre Dame fan out, and it would have been better if Oregon didn't have him at quarterback next year. Let's be honest. I would much rather face Oregon with Dylan Raiola than face Oregon with Dante Moore if I'm looking at it selfishly and wanting an easier path. But I think it's great for Dante, and it's great for Oregon, and it's great for the game of college football. That more kids can sit down and say, yeah, I'm turning down more money, but I'm not doing it because they're, giving me a Jelly the Month Club thing with my scholarship. He's going to still walk away from college football with millions of dollars in his pocket if things don't go right next year with his health. So I think it's great. That's why I say like Justin Ross. I use this as an example. I really wish NIL was around when Justin Ross was a player in college, because he helped Clemson win a championship and then had a devastating injury and never made the money he could have made had NIL been around. That's why I've always been a supporter of NIL, since in the right way, because of that stuff. I don't support pay for play, but I support NIL and I support the rev share, because things do happen. They do. But now young men like Dante can make the decision to say, you know what? I'm not ready yet. And maybe there is a little bit of, I don't want to play for the Jets or Raiders. You know what I mean? Like, neither one of those are overly attractive options. But I think for Dante, if I know the kid at all, and you guys know how I feel about Dante, my feelings for Dante are a little bit different than my feelings for Dante's dad. But I was not expecting Dante to come back. But I'm glad that Dante was able to make that decision and come back, because I think that's best for him. He needs more development, and now he'll be able to graduate. He'll be at Oregon for 3 years. He'll get a degree. He'll make millions of dollars, and if the football thing works at NFL, even better. But now he'll be the best version of himself going into next year's draft, which will then make him better prepared to then thrive once he gets to the National Football League.
Agreed. Yeah, I love the decision to do it. And I put an article out about a week ago talking about how I expect quarterback play in college football to be elevated significantly from where it was at this year. This all but solidifies that. Quarterback play in college football in 2026 is going to be nuts. If everybody's able to stay healthy and some transfer players pan out, quarterback play in college football is going to look real bright in 2026. I am very confident in saying that. Super chat from James Costanzo. Appreciate you, man. Not Notre Dame related. What do you think about the Bears and Ben Johnson? I'm really enjoying the energy Ben Johnson is bringing and how much he values the rivalry. It's nice to, and this isn't a shot at Marcus Freeman. This is more so a shot across the Transcontinental Railroad here, that it's nice to have a head coach that values a rivalry the way that it should be valued. I'm not a Bears fan by any means. Two of my best friends are Bears fans, and I watched that game with them, and it was cool to see how much that game meant to them. Legitimately, they're diehard Bears fans. I texted Vince after the show, had another buddy that's a diehard Bears fan. But about the Bears specifically this season, it goes to show you how much offense is valued now in the NFL. It's not a league anymore where you can just scrape by winning 10-6, put up, hypothetically speaking, 17 total yards of offense in a second half and 17 plays. Sorry, fans of Philadelphia, but that did actually happen. Now, they won that game, but that type of offense didn't get you anywhere in the playoffs. It goes to show you, I talk a lot of NFL with some of my buddies. And it's like what we've been saying for the last really 3 seasons. Like, the Bears roster has not been bad. It's just the person in charge of putting them in positions to be successful was bad. And Ben Johnson figured it out, and here they are, and had the biggest comeback in playoff history in their organization. I don't think that that's a coincidence. So it's been fun. I'll say that. I'm not a fan of the team. Like, the Bears could lose by 30 points on Sunday, and it would not change how I wake up on Monday morning. But it's been a lot of fun. It has been a lot of fun to watch them. I'll be honest.
Here's a comment that was made by Insured by Big, and he said he was joking, but he said Ty Simpson should have accepted Miami's $6.5 million. And I get he's obviously joking, but it is an opportunity to bring up something that I wanted to address. Y'all know I've not been the biggest Ty Simpson fan as a quarterback. You guys know that. But I got to tell you, man, last night, Ty Simpson was quoted as saying something that made me forever a Ty Simpson fan as a young man. So set it up. Ty Simpson declared for the NFL draft and chose not to transfer somewhere else because he knew he wasn't going to go back to Bama and be guaranteed the starting spot. And he probably was going to get beat out, or not beat out. Even if he didn't get beat out, like the job was likely going to go to one of the younger, more talented quarterbacks. So instead of transferring, he decided to go to the NFL. So Miami's been kind of scrambling in the portal for a quarterback. They thought they were going to get Sam Levitt. He ended up going to LSU. They liked another guy. He went somewhere else. Then they went to Ty Simpson, and he decided to go to the NFL. So they came back with a $6.5 million offer. This is what's being reported. And that was the news the last few days. And he decided to stay in the NFL draft instead of taking the $6.5 million. And this is Ty Simpson's quote. He said, everybody would just remember me as the guy who took all this money and went to Miami or Tennessee for his last year. But I was a captain. I put my hand and footprints in the cement at Denny Chimes. I would have lost everything that I built at Alabama. Well done, young man. That's a coach's kid right there. That was one of the, dude, you get it comments. You get what it means to be a quarterback in today's day and age. I thought that was excellent. So, and I know Insured's not making a comment on that. That was in response to the money and all that. But I thought that was a good time to bring that up. I was so impressed with that comment, Trev. Because in all honesty, just for what's best for him and his future as a person, it probably is not a bad idea for him to have taken that $6.5 million. Now, there's talk he'll be a first-round draft pick and all that. I mean, I guess if Kenny Pickett's a first-round draft pick and Christian Ponder's a first-round draft pick, I guess Ty Simpson could be a first-round draft pick. I don't really see it, but even if he's a second-round draft pick, he'll make money. But, $6.5 million is $6.5 million. But what a great thing. Just what a great comment for him to make. I just thought that was awesome.
In this day and age of the transfer portal and what college football has kind of been whittled down to, unfortunately. So comment wise beyond your years. Honestly.
Yeah.
If I was 22 years old and was offered $6.5 million at 22 years old, I can honestly say I don't know if I would have done the same at that point in time.
Yep. All right, let's get to Jim Halloran with a super chat. Brian's mouse fun. Go Irish and go. I need to start just like mentioning stuff is broken. Like, hey guys, my iPad is broken. My phone is busted up. It doesn't appear to be here, but it is busted up too. And man, my car's been running a little funky lately. So let's go ahead and start some GoFundMe's for things that Brian wants more of. So that'd be great. So, yeah, I'm going to start doing more of that. I appreciate you guys very much. But, yes, my mouse fund. I appreciate that, Jim. Appreciate that very much. And I think that's it for the super chat. So we can get back to the top, Trev, and go here.
From Tommy Tough Nuts, a.k.a. Tommy Guns. Buy or sell.
Lincoln Riley. I'm sorry. That's just classic. I freaking love
it's amazing. Oh, it's amazing. But from Tommy Tough Nuts. Buy or sell, one of the transfer receivers will easily lead at least one of the major receiving stat categories: receptions, yards, touchdowns, yard per catch, yards after catch, drops, etc.
We're gonna have a buy sold tomorrow, so you just had to be impatient. So impatient, Tommy. I'll sell that right now. I mean, I think that this is kind of what happens when they get talented players in the portal. You kind of forget that there's some really good football players that are established already here. AKA Jordan Faison and Jaden Greathouse. And if Jordan Faison caught more passes and had more yards than Malachi Fields, I'm going to need to see a lot from one of those two transfers before I'm going to start thinking that they're going to be able to have more production than Jordan Faison. Is it possible that one of them leads in the? Yes, it's possible. But I'm going to go ahead and say no, and even including the drops one. I'm going to say no to those.
The only one that I'm debating is Mylan Graham with yards after the catch. That one's close because the skill set that he brings to the table there is different. But as of today, and I'm staying consistent with what I said last transfer portal cycle, I'm selling until I see them in a gold helmet. Like, I know they're coming to Notre Dame. That's not like a tip of the cap of like, oh, is it not? Is it maybe? It's. I said the same thing about Malachi Fields last year. It's like, I got to see him do it in South Bend. And so I'm selling.
Trev, I'm going to have you take this one. This is a really good question, too. I'll ask this and let you answer it. Do you think having CJ starting in year 2, because I talked a lot about this earlier, I want to give you a chance to speak on this. From JB556, do you think having CJ starting in year 2 will help with the slow starts in September? Also, what could be done to help the defense start better in December?
Well, I guess I'll start, JB, by addressing kind of the second part of the question first. That I'm not sure. That's going to have to be something that Marcus Freeman and Chris Ash and Lauren Landau sit down and they figure out. Now, I don't think last season was an anomaly because it was, it was the first year of Chris Ash. It was his first year as a defensive coordinator. But the defense started off exceptionally strong in 23 and 24. I mean, they started off 2023 by holding a Navy offense, a triple option offense, to 3 points. Then they followed that up with the home opener against Tennessee State, and I think they allowed, 3 or 6 points. And so I don't think it's necessarily – I mean, even when they played in 2023, Ohio State, at the end of September, Ohio State didn't score – they didn't reach the 20-point mark. I'm not really putting too much emphasis on the defense in that because it was year 1 of a defensive coordinator. It doesn't mean they don't need to start faster in 26 than they did in 2025. But for Notre Dame under Marcus Freeman, 2025 was the outlier, and it's because they had a first-year defensive coordinator who came in and tried to adjust some things that I don't think needed to be adjusted. But for the first part of your question, JB, I absolutely think that it will. I remember hearing stories in press conferences, and at the time, again, hindsight's always 20/20. At the time, it was cool, hearing the stories about, Tyler Buckner was helping Sam Hartman learn the playbook, and Steve Angeli was helping Riley Leonard learn the playbook. And some of that was like, oh, man, that's so cool. Like, they've really taken on to the transfer. Like, this is a galvanized unit. Let's go. Here's the flip side of that conversation. A redshirt sophomore is helping a 3-year starter to learn the playbook? Okay. That might cause for some slow starts.
A guy that's already thrown for over 10,000 yards in his career, and she's over.
Yeah, it's so potentially, because then I also don't think it's a mystery that once Sam Hartman and once especially Riley Leonard got his feet under him with the playbook, we saw what that offense could look like. And that's why in October and in November, they look like completely different teams that they look like in the early window. So I absolutely think it's going to help improve. And to go back to earlier, what we talked about in Marcus Freeman's press conference, part of Sam Hartman and Riley Leonard's journey was understanding what it was like to be the starting quarterback at Notre Dame. Let's just call a spade here, folks. Being the starting quarterback at Duke and the starting quarterback at Wake Forest does not compare to being the starting quarterback at the University of Notre Dame. It's a different animal. You could argue it's a completely different species, right? So CJ's not going to have to go through that. It's about elevating their game. Riley Leonard talked about it in the first season of the Here Comes the Irish documentary of, yeah, man, like I just, you go from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows, and that's when it really set in what being the starting quarterback at Notre Dame is like. CJ knows that now. It's year 3 of Mike Denbrock. I think that is going to be one of our biggest talking points of why we're so confident. So, yeah, man, that's where I'm at with this one. Defense gets, I don't want to say a pass because they do have to start 2026 off faster. But under Freeman as a whole, 2025 has kind of been the outlier of slow starts in September for the defense.
I'm glad you said that. The defense has only started slow this past year. I mean, Al Golden's first year, they held a really good Ohio State offense to 21 points. What about Marshall? They gave up 19 points, and they didn't even play. You know what I mean? Like, they had a pick 6 in that game. They held Cal to 17 points. North Carolina scored 32. Yeah, it was 45-17 when they pretty much called the dogs off, and North Carolina got Drake score. They scores. And by the way, that was Drake May at quarterback, who's pretty good. You know
cooking
what I mean?
Right now, bro.
And that wasn't nearly as talented as this year's defense. They dominated Navy. Started off great in 2023. Started off great in 2024. Defense wasn't the reason Notre Dame lost in Northern Illinois.
No.
Played great against Texas A&M. It was this year that was an issue. So what do? Chris Ash, my man, please, for the love of all things holy, coach to your players' talents. Be aggressive. Don't try to outsmart everybody. Appreciate that you've got absolute dudes across the board, and let them play. Don't make it about let me show everyone how smart I am. Let me show everyone how good my kids are, and focus on being disciplined and being aggressive and playing smart and taking the fight. Don't try to say let's have an answer for everything, which is a problem for guys in the NFL. That was still an issue for Al Golden in year one. It was, even though his defense was more prepared because that's his natural thing. And I don't know that it is for Chris Ash, but that's going to be the big key. So a great point, Trev. Great point.
Thanks,
all right,
man.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. When you have good ones, I like to give you love for it. So there you go. But we always get these. These are fun. James Delaney, if you could take one former player and throw him into this year's team from each decade, from the 30s to the 2010s, who would it be and why? I'm going to just say it right now. I'm taking nobody from the 30s to the 60s because they would all be too small. I would take Ross Browner from the 70s. I trust my guy Loose Emoji, and what he's told me about Ross Browner is that guy could be legit. And I believe Ross Browner had some size. The late great Ross Browner, I believe, had some size to him as well. So I think he could have, 6'3", 260. He could have played in today's era.
Yeah, from the 70s, we'll swap decades. From the 70s, I'm taking tight end Ken McAfee.
Okay. 80s.
I know I'm going to take it from you, so I'll let you say it.
No, Tim Brown.
Oh,
because he's asking about decades that we never watched. So, I can also take Rocket in the 90s if I want to.
That's fair.
Which is what I was going to do.
That's fair.
I was going to take Rocket or BY from the 90s.
From the 80s, I'll take Rocket. From the 90s, give me Jerome Bettis.
Ooh, that'd be good. Who was not even the leading rusher for the 1992 Notre Dame football team.
Wild.
Yeah.
Wild.
And it hurts to not take Todd Light, but that's how good I think Notre Dame is at corner. So what about the 2000s, 2000 to 2009?
Probably Golden Tate.
Mm-hmm. I'd take Floyd because of the fact that they did need a boundary. As much as I like Quincy Porter, I'm taking Michael Floyd in the boundary. So
I was saving Floyd for the 2010s.
Okay, there you go. 2010s, who you taking?
Michael Floyd.
Yeah. There's so many good options for the 2010s, but when you look at the needs of the team, that's what I like to do with these questions is what's your team needs? Like a year ago, if you asked me this question a year ago, I'd have been like Brady Quinn, Jimmy Clausen.
Yeah.
But now it's like, well, they're good at quarterback. But 2010s, could you imagine putting Lewis Nix at nose on this defense?
I mean,
or Stephon Tuitt maybe as a 3 technique on this defense.
Yeah.
Or Sheldon Day as a 3 technique on this defense. Or Khalid Kareem opposite Boubacar. I mean, there's so many good D-line options, but at the end of the day, the nose tackle, that big, athletic, penetrating, run-stuffing nose tackle like Lewis Nix. Could you imagine the late, great Lewis Nix playing nose tackle for Notre Dame on this year's team? That'd be a pretty good one.
And because of the blue gold game that year, I can only forecast the amount of Lewis Nix package questions that we would get in short goal line situations. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yep. That's right. That's right. All right, let's get to one. Here's one from, speaking of the Golden Tate, Michael Floyd era. Let's go with Chief Brody with a question.
Passing game talent on this roster versus 2009.
That's actually kind of an easy answer. The top end talent on this one is better than the top end talent from 09 is better than the top end talent from this year's team. The depth of this year's team is significantly better.
Yes.
And I have said for a long time that Jimmy Clausen is the best passing quarterback I've ever seen from a Notre Dame quarterback. And it's not really close, that 09 season. I won't be shocked if that answer changes after 2026 and it's CJ Carr. That's how good CJ is. And there's not a receiver on the roster as good as Michael Floyd or Golden Tate. I don't know that there's a tight end on the roster better than Kyle Rudolph. There isn't. At least not one that's not a freshman. Now, Ian Premer might be able to become that, but as a freshman, he's not as good as sophomore version of Kyle Rudolph. But the depth is exceptionally better now than it was then. And so it's kind of like, take starting lineup, it's 09. Give me the entire units, that's a different conversation.
Agreed.
Very different conversation. And I just can't put CJ over Jimmy yet. But I'll say this, CJ's sophomore year was a whole lot better than Jimmy's sophomore year.
Yeah.
Jimmy threw 17 picks in his sophomore year.
He did. Yeah, he did. A lot of people from that year, rightfully so, remember the Hawaii Bowl and the Michigan home game when they won 35-17.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was, yeah.
And he was still very, you could see the talent in 08. He just was a sophomore. Who had to carry the team behind a bad offensive line and no defense. I get it. But he made a lot of mistakes that year, and he was, but.
What's rough is that bad offensive line was still so much better than what it was the year prior.
Oh, my gosh.
I went back. I was hanging out with my dad. It was about a couple months ago, and he uploaded a bunch of just old Notre Dame games to like his Plex server, and we were watching just for fun, and I use the word fun loosely, the 07 Georgia Tech game. And I was like, this might be the worst offensive line performance I think I've ever seen. Like ever. In the history of watching football. That was bad.
Yep. All right. Those are fun questions. We always enjoy those questions.
Tough.
And it begins. I just want to say this before we read this question. It is hilarious, and not so much Tommy, because Tommy wasn't losing his mind, but it is funny how much the attitude, the demeanor, the tone of our chat has changed in the last 3 days since Monday. It's a very different tone in the chat since then, and we went from literally we had people calling for the GM and other people to be fired on Monday to now this. It is kind of funny. Actually, not Monday. It was Friday that we had people calling for the GM to be fired. Now, 5 days later, it's like this.
From Tommy Toughnuts, I'm going out on that limb and predicting undefeated in 2026 for Notre Dame. I know it's difficult to predict that, but what say you at this point?
It's way too early to make a prediction. I'm not going to make a prediction, but I'll say this. There's not a team on Notre Dame's schedule. And there's not enough portal players out there for Miami to go get for me to be able to say that they could possibly be better. There's not a team on this schedule that I think has a better team than Notre Dame, nor is it even really close. I think, and give me the ability to change my mind as things continue to happen and more portal signings and I study more teams' rosters, right? But what I know of what's coming back next year, I don't think there's a better roster in college football than Notre Dame's. Okay. This year, we said they were top 3 to 5. And I just said I wouldn't trade anybody's for theirs. But they're top 3. This year, it's not even that. I don't think there's a better roster than what Notre Dame has coming back and what they're bringing in. it's pretty awesome.
I'm agreed. In respect to this, my answer could change, but as of right now, I probably won't predict them to go undefeated, even if they have a better roster than everybody else on their schedule, because I was confident in saying that they had a better roster than everybody on their schedule this year. They lost 2 games. So as of right now, no, I'm not going to predict that it's undefeated, that they go undefeated. That's extremely hard to do. Extremely. With that being said, would I be shocked if they did? Not in the slightest.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm at.
I tell you, Trev, I woke up this morning and I called you, and I was like, how nice is it to not wake up and every time I get an alert on my phone, I'm like, oh God, what is it? the portal alerts.
Yeah.
And just be like, I'm not stressed about the portal. I got a good night's sleep last night. Yeah.
Another one from Tommy. Buy or sell, assuming full health, I think. Kedron Young eventually takes the number 1 running back job in 26.
This is the last buy, sell, hold, Tommy. We told you before the show started. We're doing buy, sell, hold tomorrow, man. But does Kedron Young have a chance to be the number 1 running back next year? Yes, he does. Absolutely he does. But he's got to show me he's healthy first. And even if he's healthy, Aeneas Williams isn't going to just give it away. And he's a good football player. That's the one. I mean, that's the battle I'm most intrigued by is what's the pecking order going to be at running back coming out of spring? That's going to be very interesting.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed completely. From Tom Connor, Brian, do you think the culture and the type of players they recruit plus the way they don't make NIL the most important have contributed to the lack of players leaving?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this a lot. Marcus Freeman puts a lot of value in his staff, and Chad did this, and the coaches do this, and now Mike Martin's being tasked with doing this, is make sure you're bringing in the right people. And I think that's something that early on Mike Martin has struggled with a little bit in the portal. You know, they wasted their time recruiting the 2 Alabama kids, Rousseau and Smith. That just was not going to happen. And I think because when you come from the NFL, let's be honest, character doesn't matter as much. Culture doesn't matter as much. It's you're a professional. You're getting paid to do a job. Show up and do the job. I don't care what you do. I mean, most NFL teams don't care that you go out and party every night and do. As long as you can show up and do your job, it doesn't matter. It's a little different at a place like Notre Dame. And I think that's probably the biggest adjustment for Mike Martin is that does matter more at Notre Dame. And I think he's learning that quickly. But you've got to make sure the culture you're bringing them into is strong. But let's also be honest about something. The culture and the type of players in the NIL matters also because these players do also know that they have a shot to be a champion next year. If Notre Dame was coming off an 8-4 year, I don't know that they'd be as gung-ho about,
Right.
about let's all come back and run it back one more time so we can improve and go 9-3 next year. Like, they know, guys, we got a chance to do something special. They know. Believe me, I've had enough conversations to know that the leadership of this football team very much knows, and every time they watch a playoff game, gets madder and madder and madder because they know that should have been them, and they felt they could beat anybody this year. You didn't handle your business in the first 2 weeks of the first 2 games of the season. That's why you're not there. They also know that. And so I think there's a lot of that to it as well. But part of it's culture and part of it's the brotherhood that they always talk about and things along those lines. And part of it, too, is the NIL may not be the most important thing, but believe me, folks, Notre Dame is not skimping out on what they're paying their current team, which is why they're not giving max dollars to certain guys and why I say I'm not getting into a bidding war for Nick Marsh. Pass. He's a good player, but pass. Other positions you might have to get into a bidding war because you can't afford to strike out. But the other part of the reason is because a lot of the money they had is going to the current team. Because the best cornerback, the best quarterback, the best defensive end, the best corner, the best safety tandem, the best middle linebacker, the best linebacker depth, all these things we could talk about, maybe the most gifted power end in the country were already on your roster. Some of the most talented offensive linemen in the country, some of the most talented tight ends in the country are already on your roster or arriving in, this week and some in the summer. That's where a lot of their money went. And they kind of, I mean, honestly, their offseason looks a lot like Ohio State's did prior to 2024. They lost Marvin Harrison Jr. and a couple other guys in the NFL, but they didn't have a very big NFL draft class. This year, Notre Dame will not have a huge NFL draft class. They spent a lot of money keeping their roster together, and then added Will Howard, added Quinshaw Junkins, added Caleb Downs, and they added Jackson the year before, right? They added the McGowan kid from Alabama. That's kind of it as far as like the impact. And they had a backup D tackle. I mean, but it was a small portal class, but it was an impactful portal class. And the rest of the money was spent on, we need to make sure that JT stays and Jack Sawyer stays and Emeka stays and that kind of thing. And that team went out and the next year went and won a championship. So that's what I kind of see from this football team.
Agreed.
All right, let's go to this one from my guy, Tom. Thank you, buddy. F. Rawls, 42.
Appreciate you, Tom Frawley. Brian Driscoll, due to the wide receivers coming in, how much will Denbrock alter the offense, if at all?
I think you'll see the vertical pass game to the field be a little bit more utilized than it was last year. You remember in 24, they threw a lot more go routes to the Z. Mitchell, Jordan Faison. They didn't really do a whole lot of that this year because they didn't really have a guy there that could do that. They didn't throw as many go balls to Jordan Faison this year as they did last year. Because rightly said, that's just not his game. That's just silly. But they thought Chris Mitchell was going to be a bigger factor in the offense, which is why that was a bigger factor in what they did. I think you'll see some more of that. I think you'll probably see a little bit more screen game this year. If Greathouse is healthy, plus Mylan Graham, plus Jordan Faison, I think the receiver screen game will be a bigger factor. I think you could say maybe see a little bit more quick game being used. You know, there's more reason to get into some more mesh concepts now because you have some guys can catch and run. I think we'll see some of those things. It's not going to be like, oh, I've never seen them run that play before, but you're like, dude, they're running that play a lot more than they did last year. That kind of thing is more of what I think we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be the same concepts. I think the offense is going to look the same, but the results are going to be a little bit different because I think CJ is going to get to the backside read. I think he is going to hit backside digs, and it's going to be a lot of, well, we didn't see that last year. It's like, well, you did. You just didn't see the result that it yielded in 26. But those routes were open in 2025. Those routes were ran in 2025. Now they're just being hit. I think that's what it'll look like, more so than changing the landscape of the offense. From B Straw, hypothetical question. Say Notre Dame goes undefeated next year and is the number one going into the playoffs. Which bowl location do you think they would choose for the quarterfinal round?
Well, let me go see what the options are. See college football playoff schedule locations. So, because it rotates every year. So the next year, the quarterfinals, 26-27 quarterfinals, doesn't look like, have they not announced them yet? Yeah, let me see if I can find them. Right now, I can't see anything. I don't see anything as far as what they are. I'm just kind of doing a quick search real quick. Let me see if I can find those 25, 26. I can't really answer that question because we don't have I don't see or I can't find what next year's quarterfinal games are going to be. So I'll tell you what, B Straw, give us a minute. I'm going to put this one down, Trev, and I'm going to try to see if I can find this while we're doing other things, and then come back to it a little bit later.
Right on. From Doug Nimke, will the offensive line miss Billy Schrouth, or will they be just fine?
I think both things are true.
Yeah,
I think they're going to miss Billy Schrouth. He's a really good football player. I think there's a chance that they'll also be fine. It just depends on look, if the offensive line stays the same as it did this past year, but you just insert like Will Black or Matty Augustine at right tackle and you put Charles Jagison at left guard, I think the offensive line will be fine. I don't think that's the best makeup of the 5-man unit, but I'm just saying, I think they'll be fine. if Sullivan Absher is starting at left guard next year, I think they'll be fine because he's going to learn from how he played this year. And Sully had some really good moments, some moments where he looked like a guy that's making his first or second or third career start. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of talent in that room. And then also it's like, okay, maybe they're not quite as good at left guard next year as they were this year, but the left tackle's better, the center's better, the right guard's better, the right tackle's better. Then as a unit, they'll be fine. And that's kind of how I look at it, is like, was Mike McGlinchey going to be able to be the next Ronnie Stanley in 2016? No. But he was still like a third-team All-American, still pretty good. And that's what when you recruit the way that they've recruited on the offensive line, you lose a guy like Billy Schroth. They're like, dang, that sucks. I really wanted to see what Billy could do, and he had a heck of a year prior to the injury. But you're also like, but I think they're going to be okay as long as Joe Rudolph puts the right guys in the right spots. It's the same thing at like a lot of positions. Like, yeah, man, I would have much rather Josh Burnham come back this year. They're a better team with Josh Burnham. Are they still okay getting Keon and with the up? Yeah, they're going to be fine. You know what I mean? Like, I feel that about a lot of places.
It's an and, not an or. It's the O-line will miss Billy Schrouth, and they will be just fine. I mean, the benefit is, it's like the benefit, it's a double-edged sword, really. It's like we've seen what starting offensive lines look like without Billy Schrouth, while Billy Schrouth is still a member of the team because of his injury history. Mm-hmm. It's unfortunate, but we've seen it. You know, they finished the game out strong against USC without Billy Schrouth. They beat Pitt, dominated them on the road with a defensive line that had Francis Brew on it. They did fine. Yeah. So, yeah, both will be true. You're losing a captain. That will always, always, always be missed. From Jay Melvin, Brian, 2 questions. But do you think Mike Brown is the right guy for the wide receiver coaching job? And with all the talent Notre Dame has in the wide receiver room, do you ever think back to the 21 and 22 room and look at where they are now?
I think that about a lot of positions. Is he the right guy for the wide receiver job? I mean, it doesn't matter. He is the receivers coach, so it really doesn't matter. I don't know that we've seen him be in a situation like this since he got here, where he's got the depth that he has, where he's got to kind of be responsible for developing younger people. I mean, you can say whatever you want about Mike Brown, but his number one task last year was not developing Cam Williams. It was getting Malachi Fields ready to play and getting Will Pauling in. I mean, that's still your number one priority. Now, number 2 needs to be getting young players ready to go and all those type of things. But I think Mike Brown and Joe Rudolph are thrown into the same category, that we just don't have honest conversations about him because it's 2 extremes. It's either he's terrible and sucks and hasn't developed a soul, or, oh, he's great, look what he did at Cincinnati. I'm like, well, neither of those things are true. He's done a good job at Notre Dame. Like, anyone that knows receiver play, which I do, I'm not going to lie. I've coached All-American and all-conference receivers. That's kind of my, like, I started as a true freshman in college as a wide receiver. Like, I know that position. And I told people for years that Dell Alexander stunk, and it took people years to figure out that I was right. Mike Brown's a good receivers coach. I'm telling you, I watched this team play. It's a good receivers coach. Joe Rudolph is a good O-line coach. But Notre Dame's goal at those positions is not to be good. What I mean by good is they're minimum good. The job he's done is good. But now it's up to Coach Brown to take that next step and turn it into greatness. He did that at Cincinnati with the receiving core he had there. He hasn't done that at Notre Dame yet. So the truth is kind of in the middle. He's done a good job so far. He like a lot of coaches that have not recruited well, people can't disassociate the recruiting from the starting, right? Or from the on-field production, right? How many years did Al Washington put a good D-line on the field that people still wouldn't give him credit because they're still mad that he missed out on Justin Scott and, and these other guys on the recruiting trail? Like, well, I mean, yeah, he's got to get better recruiting, but that D-line was pretty flipping good this year. You know what I mean?
Was.
Like, and that's kind of where Mike Brown is. Does Mike Brown need to do a better job coaching this receiving room? Yes, he does. Has Mike Brown done a good job so far? Has he laid a good foundation? Yeah, he does. Mike Brown gets a lot of credit for how good this receiving core is at blocking. Jordan Faison's developed quite a bit as a route runner. He gets credit for that. There were aspects of Malachi Fields' game last year that improved. it's just going to be harder to notice it because he was already so advanced. And that's the reality of it. So yeah, he's got to have the best coaching job of his tenure at Notre Dame so far this season. But he's not as far away from that as people think he is. And that's kind of my take on him. But to the other part, Trev, I look back at a lot of positions. I think back to in 2021, Notre Dame started a true freshman Blake Fisher at left tackle. They started Jarrett Patterson at center. He was pretty good. Josh Lugg at right tackle. He should have been a guard. Kane Madden at right guard. And then who was the left guard? Didn't they start Zeke Carrell started off at left guard?
I think.
Struggled mightily, and then they put Andrew Kristofic eventually gets in there at left guard.
Yeah.
And Andrew's a nice player, and we've talked about this. Not until Andrew and Joe got inserted together on the left side did that line start looking like a competent Power 4 offensive line. But you just go look at that, and you look at the talent there now. It's night and day outside of the left tackle. I feel that about a lot of places, a lot of positions. A lot of positions. And heck, Notre Dame made the playoffs one year. I repeat, Notre Dame played for the ACC championship and and made it to the playoffs one year where their starting will linebacker had 14 tackles in 11 games. True story. Shane Simon was a starting will linebacker for most of that year and made 14 tackles in 11 games.
Oof. Yes.
The guy that worked in the rotation with him only had 22. So you had 36 tackles from your top two will linebackers in 11 games, and they made it to the playoffs.
Yeah. Outlook is significantly different and definitely for the better. That is for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Another one from our guy, Jay Melvin.
Coach, Adon Schuler will be the best safety in college football next year. Agree or disagree?
I agree it's possible. I mean, I don't know that it's a given Adon Schuler is going to be the best safety on Notre Dame's team next year. And that's not even remotely close to being a shot at Adon. I think they both have a chance to be that kind of player next year. Adon's the better player today. Tay is more impactful. Adon is more steady. I think they complement each other tremendously well. Do I think Adon will be the next best safety in college football next year? I don't know. Could Tay? I don't know. Here's what I will say, though. I don't care about how good one safety is. I care about how good your safety room is. And I can confidently say this. I don't know that there will be a better safety tandem than those two.
100%.
And we could debate. I could make a case for Tay. You could make a case for Adon. I could make a case for Adon. You could make a case for Tay. It's irrelevant. Fortunately, we don't have to make that decision. They got both of them. But the other thing, too, is they do different things. Tay's going to make more big plays next year. Adon is going to make more of the plays that we don't notice. He takes away the over route that they don't even throw and they go somewhere else. And you don't even notice it on TV because you don't get to see him jumping that over route and making the quarterback go to his third read. And then Tay throws an interception or picks it off because he's throwing backside and Tay steps into the window. But in reality, when you break the film down, it was Adon jumping that over route or jumping that under route or that dig route that forced the quarterback to throw blind backside that allowed Tay or somebody else to pick it off. Adon does so many of those type of things in the game, and he makes a really good football player. And then Tay is so impactful and such a playmaker. It's a great tandem, and I really enjoy watching them play.
100%.
Yeah.
From Jason Rose, what will be the post-game show on IB be like the night Notre Dame wins the national title? I will no doubt be watching, excited as all heck.
Well, I know one thing is true, and Trevor already told me this is gonna be true, but he said he's gonna cry, which I understand.
I sure will.
Yeah.
I am not even ashamed to say it.
Yeah,
not even ashamed to say it. I'd never seen one in my lifetime.
Yep.
Yeah, that's happening for sure. From Jim Halloran, didn't Wisconsin run a 3-4 when Partridge was there? has he been mainly associated with 3-4?
Well, D-line coach does what his defensive coordinator wants him to do. And at Wisconsin, they were 3-4, but his entire time at Pitt, they were a 4-down team. So, and are the Colts a 3 or a 4-down?
4.
So he spent a lot more time in a 4-down in the last decade than a 3-down. So, yeah, and like Mike Elson. Mike Elson was the D-line coach in Notre Dame when they were a 3-4 team, and he was also a D-line coach in Notre Dame when they were a 4-down team and did good at both. He actually was even better as a 4-down coach than he was a 3-down coach. So, yeah.
From Catfish Kelly's Dirty Plunger, what type of ceiling should we expect for Keeley, considering Partridge has him now?
I don't know if this is a new person or somebody that's changed their old handle, but this name is freaking great, by the way. I noticed this the other day, but look, I think Keon Keeley right now has probably the ceiling of a late day 2 draft pick if he puts it all together, because he's a ways away from the explosive athlete he was as a high school player. And it's hard for me. I feel like it'd be unrealistic for me to say that, but I do think that there's that still in him if he's willing to put in the work, and Lauren Lando and Charlie Partridge. Look, Charlie Partridge is going to have a very important role in the development of Keon Keeley, but that won't come until Lauren Landau does his thing. And that's what I want to see first and foremost. So I think Lauren Landau is the number one person that's going to be responsible 100%. For Keon Keeley. And that's not at all taking a shot at Charlie Partridge or diminishing it. It's just if Keon doesn't take to what Lauren Landau is trying to do, it won't matter what Charlie Partridge is going to do. He won't have the same upside. And it's not even just about getting him in shape. It's about getting him to have the physical and mental toughness he needs to maximize his immense potential and talent. And we're going to know if Keon, we're going to know before spring ball starts if Keon is serious about being the guy he's capable of, because he will attack this offseason strength program. And I'm excited to see it. Very excited to see it.
Absolutely agreed.
Yep.
From Notre Dame Luxury Garage, it seems to me we have fewer position changes these days. Does that speak to our depth of talent or just the portal era?
I think those two things are a part of it. I think another part of it is you have more and more and more specialists in high school. You have more and more guys that just play one side of the ball. It used to be where your linebacker room was a bunch of guys that also played running back in high school, like Drake Bowen did. But, Kingston didn't play offense. Madden didn't play offense. Jaden Alsbury didn't play a lot of offense. Bodie Cahoon didn't play a lot of offense before he left. I don't think Teddy Rizak played a lot of offense. Back in the day, you were signing guys like Notre Dame would sign 6, 7, 8 running backs, knowing that, Anthony Denman was going to move over there. This guy was going to, and it's just different now than it used to be. Guys you had a lot more two-way players than it used to be. You don't see a lot of offensive linemen like Brad Williams, Jerry Tillery, who were guys that, could be D1 players on the inside of the ball. You just don't see that as much anymore. Guys are not, this isn't true across the board. Notre Dame signed plenty. Joey O'Brien, Aiden Pouncey. It's just, you see a little less of that, which lowers the numbers, especially at like linebacker, running back. And then what you look for at running back changes now too. Go ahead, Trev.
I was just about to say, for stuff like running, like it's not, the build of linebackers is now different than what it was back then too. Like, I mean, I remember looking at some linebackers and you either had like just the absolute massive human beings that were also tight ends in high school. And then you also had like your 5'10", 240 guys that were just meant to be run stuffers. It's just different now. Because now you look at linebackers, it's like they're, 6'2", 6'3". Like look at Ohio State's linebackers from this past season, Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles. They were not running backs in high school at 6'4". So I think also because of how much the game has changed, you need more of those specialized positions. Running backs are built differently than they were back then too. From Andrew Gilmore, is Oregon's offensive coordinator through next year? They lost arguably the best OC in Will Stein.
we could sit here and debate all day whether or not Will Stein's the best offense coordinator or not. I'll just say this. We all agree he's in the conversation, right? He's really good. That's a loss. The guy that's replacing him is Drew Maringer, who was their he was, I think, their tight ends coach, I believe. Let me look this up real quick. Yeah, he was their tight ends coach on the team before. So he was co-offensive coordinator and tight ends coach. He's now their full-time offensive coordinator. So that's who will be running their offense next year. So you are staying in-house. You're not going to necessarily need to change your playbook, which I think is smart. I don't know if this guy's got the chops to do it, but if you think he's got the chops, I'd rather go with somebody in-house than going outside the program.
It's another reason why I love the move for Dante Moore to come back, is that continues, or that kind of picks up the continuity with Will Stein leaving. That's definitely going to help too.
Mm-hmm.
Another one from Notre Dame Luxury Garage. Can you compare CJ and Jimmy Clausen? I never appreciated Clausen because I was young and the teams didn't excel.
There's a lot of similarities. Super accurate, really quick releases. Jimmy had more of a whipping motion because I don't think he had a natural kind of cannon. CJ's a little bit more athletic, but they're both pure passers, great decision makers, understand timing, understand layering throws when they need to, understanding when to put some gas on it when they need to, things like that. So I think there's a lot of similarities between Jimmy and CJ. I think CJ is just got a little bit more physical tools than what Jimmy did. And CJ's so far been able to stay healthier than Jimmy did. We didn't see the best version of Jimmy Clausen because he battled leg injuries his last 2 years, and he wasn't very athletic to begin with. But you go back and watch his high school film, he was way more athletic and could move way better than he did in 2009. I mean, basically played all year in a broken foot. I've heard people question Jimmy Clausen's toughness before, and I'm like, you want to question his leadership. You hear all those things about whether they liked him or not. You want to question whether or not he should have committed. I don't really care. Here's what I know about Jimmy Clausen. He had as much arm talent as any Notre Dame quarterback I've ever seen, and that kid was tough as nails. He took a beating every week for 3 years because his offensive line was trash, and he played with a broken foot. He can be like, look, man, I got to protect my NFL future. He was never the same athlete after that, and it killed him in the NFL because he couldn't move. So whatever you think about Jimmy Clausen, I don't really care to rehash whether you think he was an elite player or not, or liked, or a leader, or whatever the case may be. Look, it's over. We're getting close to 20 years since Jimmy Clausen was your quarterback. I don't care about all that. I'll say this. I loved watching him play. He had elite arm talent. He was fun to watch, and that kid was tough and played through a lot of pain. And I mean, how many times we see Jimmy make just darts where he gets hit right in the face as soon as he releases the ball. I mean, that guy took a beating, and he was a heck of a quarterback. I'm not going to speak to the other things. I wasn't covering the team back then, but man, that guy was good. And I think he takes a lot of blame for the team's success. But could you imagine how bad they would have been if they didn't have Jimmy Clausen those 2 years of quarterback?
Yeah.
Good night. Whew, that would have not been pretty.
No, agreed.
Not been pretty.
We share the same sentiment about Jimmy.
Yep.
From Robert Bishop, would you guys rather have two guys like last year that have proven themselves on the field for one season, or have two guys like this season with higher upside but have shown less on the field? Talking receivers?
I think he's talking about the transfer portal receivers. I mean, if all things being equal, I would rather have proven production. I think Indiana's made a killing on all these portal kids, but almost every single one had shown himself to be a productive player where he came from. You're taking a risk when you sign two guys that haven't produced. Why are you taking that risk? Because of the talent and because there's a lot of trust in what you already have on your team.
Yeah, I think the respective moves were correct for each of the last two seasons. You needed more of the proven guy in the portal because you were breaking in a redshirt freshman quarterback, and you needed a guy that you knew what you were going to get.
Mm-hmm.
You compound that with the fact that Jordan Faison spent the majority of the 2024 season hurt. And as much as I loved what Jaden Greathouse did in the postseason, we also talked at the time that I was like, and it always wasn't his fault. Most of the time you could argue that it wasn't, but dude ended the regular season with like 7 games with 1 or no catches. That's what you were going into 2025 with. And a redshirt freshman quarterback. You needed proven production guys. I understand the move this year. Now that you know what you have with CJ, now that you know what a fully healthy season of Jordan Faison looks like, the Jaden Greathouse conundrum is still just head scratching of why he didn't play more last year, even when he was healthy. But I feel like you have more of a baseline this year of what you're going to get from the passing offense, especially with CJ. So I understand going with the higher upside guys this year. So that's my 2 cents on it, man. I think each move was the right move for the 25 team and for the 26 team.
Agree. I want to respond to something here from D Smith 1605. D Smith said, didn't Trevor say he was going to walk into a store with national champions 2026 on his forehead with a permanent marker if Notre Dame wins the 2026 championship? Yes, he did say that, and that has been written down and saved, but that's after he gets done crying.
Mm-hmm.
So, wipe the tears his face.
Yep.
Man up a little bit, write it on his forehead. Actually,
hey,
you have to have your wife write it so that way it's not backwards. And then he's going to the store.
Yep.
He's going to do both.
I will do both. I will do both. I will cry tears of joy. You can't make me feel bad for that. I'm going to cry.
Actually, he's going to cry, then do the show, then go to the store. That's how it's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it's going to go.
And I'm going to cry in the show. And I'm going to cry after the show. I'm going to wake up and cry tears of joy.
Love it. Love it. Trev, you still crying, dude? It's like March 13th, bruh. We're a week in the spring ball. I know, it's just still so emotional.
Trev, it's 2034.
Yeah.
You got to stop.
You got to let it go, brother. Got to let it go. You keep crying every day in the show. Oh. You got to let it go, man. That's awesome. Yep. Yep. Here's a great comment. Oh, actually, I won't bring that up. Let's see here. Let's go to this one. This is an interesting one that I saw.
From Irish Dragon
23.
Love it. Trolls bash Notre Dame schedule. Is it fair? Is it a fair counter to say going on a 10-game win streak and beating teams soundly, i.e. 20 points on average, is indicative of Notre Dame being elite than having a weak schedule?
I think it's definitely more indicative of Notre Dame being elite than it is a weak schedule. I mean, there's a lot of teams that went through stretches of where they didn't play anybody. I mean, Texas A&M played a pretty soft schedule after what Notre Dame played. That's what we keep being told by SEC people, and they weren't killing people every week. And part of the reason that Notre Dame graded out so high in all the computer metrics is just because they weren't like it's okay. Well, I beat that team by 40. Well, they weren't very good. Yeah, but nobody else beat them more than 13. That was the point we kept making about Arkansas. Was Arkansas good last year? No, they were terrible last year. But the way Notre Dame beat them was unmatched, and it wasn't like they beat them by 43 and the next best team beat them by 39 and the next one beat them by 37. But Notre Dame had the most. It took them until their 9th loss of the season. Let me rephrase. It took them until their 7th loss in SEC play before the entire SEC teams that beat them by more combined points than what Notre Dame beat them by. And then I had to listen to everybody talk about Texas is back. They're hot because they beat them by 16 in the last game of the second to last game of the season.
The schedule batching, to your point, has gotten so out of control. It's been blown way out of proportion. One, Marcus Freeman and CJ Carr don't sit down and decide what their schedules are. One, you can't control who you play. You can control, though, how you look when you play those teams. And when you beat the brakes out of it, like I said the same thing about Indiana. Indiana played one ranked opponent all year.
Mm-hmm.
One. Like I'm sorry, like beating Illinois doesn't impress me. I don't care how much you did it by. Like Illinois was a good football team, but I don't walk away from that and saying my thought on Indiana making the national championship game and making the playoffs was formulated off of what they did to Illinois. No, it's formulated off of what they did against the one ranked opponent that they played. Again, I say one in the regular season. I don't care what strength is. I think that is such a blown out of proportion metric because I was told that Alabama played just this rigorous gauntlet that nobody else could have made it through. And then they got absolutely boat raced against a team that played a terrible schedule. So it just doesn't matter in my eyes. It doesn't.
Right. The team that played the bad schedule absolutely annihilated the team that everybody told us was only in because of how good they were against the tough schedule. Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Blown way
So,
out of proportion, bro.
and we heard the same thing last year when Notre Dame played Georgia. Y'all haven't been challenged like we had the toughest schedule in the country and blah 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 blah. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's see how it goes.
And then it's like plot armor in a bad movie. It's like then they're giving themselves plot armor for when they lose. It's like, well, why'd you lose that game? Well, they're so exhausted from the hard schedule they played before. It's like, okay, well then if that's the hill you're willing to die on, then don't put them in. They're going to lose by 30. I hate the schedule.
Yeah,
it's so stupid.
And Notre Dame is not the first of all. The schedule wasn't as bad as people made it out to be. I mean, their schedule ranked up until they played Stanford. Their schedule was in the 30s and 40s the whole time. They ended in the 50s. That's still well into the top half of college football. Nobody else beat teams the way that Notre Dame beat teams. You know, I mean, I think it took Bama until their win over Oklahoma to have as many Power 4 wins as what Notre Dame had in the playoffs.
That is correct.
Yeah.
They had the opportunity to do that in the SEC championship game, but they lost by 21. In case people forgot.
Which, by the way, is if you take the combined points that Notre Dame lost by in their 2 losses and divide it and multiplied it by 5, you'd still have less points of a margin of defeat than what they had in the SEC title game.
Yep. And also, in case people forgot, that was the worst loss in SEC championship game in the history of the Southeastern Conference.
Matter of fact, let's see, 3 plus 1 plus 11 plus 2 plus, let's see here, you've got to go back to, 2023 plus 8 plus 13. You've got to go every loss from Louisville 2023 to this season to equal to surpass the margin of defeat that Alabama had against Indiana in the playoffs.
Dang. Well,
actually, sorry.
From Tyler Ottinger, who are your 3 favorite players on both sides of the ball to watch film on?
Of the current team, it's a good question. Go ahead if you have one. I mean, CJ obviously is
I got
one for me.
Yeah, I mean, on offense, my 3, I love CJ Carr. I loved watching Gerby Lambert's film.
Yeah, especially the second half of the year. Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Gerby Lambert's film was fantastic.
For this current team, I still say Jaden Greathouse has got really good film when he's allowed to play.
Agreed.
Defensively, if we're talking high school film, I do love going back and watching Keedron run the rock. We're going back to defensive side of the ball. Leonard Moore is he's so good because the thing that makes Leonard Moore so good is he's tall, he's long, he's fast, he's strong. I mean, all the physical tools are there. But what also makes Leonard Moore so good and so enjoyable to watch on film is because he's so incredibly smart and technically sound. I don't think people appreciate just how smart he is and how fundamentally sound he is for such a young player. He's not good just because he's tall, long, and really fast. Now, he's a superstar because of those things. But there are guys that are tall, long, and fast who can't play football at a high level. He's an incredibly smart player and fundamentally sound, and a guy I really enjoy watching.
Tay Johnson this past season was awesome to watch. His closing speed is ridiculous.
Yeah.
That kid is so fun to watch on film, man.
Yeah, he is. Bubakar's film was really fun to watch this year because he became such a balanced player as the season wore on. He got much better defending the run. He was fun to watch. You said Tay's a good one. I like watching Adon. I just loved watching his maturity this year. You know who else is a lot of fun to watch is Drake Bowen.
I was just
not just because when the ball snap, but he does so much pre-snap. It's wild watching him play.
Yes.
You're like, how's he even lined up? Because he's so busy kind of telling everybody else what to do the whole time.
It's it's after watching his film that people like me and you and Vince and Sean Davis think that it is blasphemous when people talk about how he shouldn't be a starter.
Yeah.
It's like, it's because we watch his film, and it's not because we look at the box score after the game. It's not because we look at the height and weights listed on the depth charts. It's because we watch his film, and it's like, this cat is a top 8 middle linebacker in the country, not 8th, arguably not 7th. I'm very excited to watch him this upcoming season.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And then here's the last one, Trev, because we do got to get running, because the guys, we are going longer today past 5 o'clock because we wanted to give you guys a good show, but we're eating up a lot of the time from the guys on the IB Nation Sports Talk, and I don't want to do that. So this is going to be the last one. And then we'll be back tomorrow with a buy, so hold. And then Friday we'll have a mailbag.
Another one from Catfish Kelly's Dirty Plunger. Am I wrong to think the kicker pickup might be the thing that seriously puts us in the ship contention and completes us more than most additions besides defensive tackle?
No. With all due respect. No. Go ahead, Trev. You can answer first.
I love the kicker pickup. Don't get me wrong. I think some people sometimes blow out of proportion like how meaningful kickers are. I think they're extremely meaningful. So Vince, if you're listening to this, please don't be upset with me on this. But on a per snap basis, no, the kicker is not putting Notre Dame over the top more than defensive tackle pickups. Yeah. Just not. I mean, I love Justin Yoon. He was only over 80% or matched what the Spencer Porath kid did once, and that was in 2015. Like, that's not. Yeah,
now, he did it every year, but yeah.
Like, that's the thing.
He said, meaning we need a consistent kicker. I agree completely, but my whole point is if you're a champ, Alabama won a lot of championships with crappy kickers. I mean, I'm just saying, they won a lot of championships with a kicker that they could barely make field goals. If you're good enough and you're a championship caliber football team, yeah, it'd be nice to have a kicker who could then make some clutch kicks. I'm not going to deny that, but not nearly as important as defensive tackle, because if you're not really good at defensive tackle, it really doesn't matter what your kicker is. It just means instead of losing 35-13, you lose 35-10 because he missed a field goal. You know what I mean? Or the other way around. Instead of losing 35-10 and missing a field goal, you lose 35-13. I mean, at the end of the day, it's still about can you stop people? I mean, when Alabama won their title in 2011, their field goal kickers went 23 of 36, 63.9%. Like, that's bad.
Yeah.
They were 15 of 20 the next year. But he never allowed them to kick a meaningful kick that year. Guess what? It didn't hurt them against Notre Dame one bit.
No.
It
sure didn't, bro.
One bit.
It sure didn't.
I mean?
It sure didn't. I mean, I was as frustrated as the next guy about the kicking issues, but let's be real clear on something. I was frustrated by them because Notre Dame was beating opponents 25-10 with kicking woes when it should have been like 40-10.
Right.
They didn't lose to Texas A&M because of a missed field goal. That was a botched hold. And they didn't lose to Miami because of a missed field goal. Like, so I get where you're coming from here. Like, I'm sorry. I came at that a little strong. I don't want to paint this picture like it was a dumb question.
It was.
I get where you're coming from. But in comparison to the other positions on the team,
it speaks to how bad kicking has been in recent years that we're even having this conversation, because it's like we're so desperate. And that's why I'm so disappointed that we didn't get to see a healthy Mitch Jeter last year, because if Mitch Jeter doesn't get hurt against Northern Illinois, we have a very different opinion of Notre Dame's recent kicking situation.
Agreed.
Because Mitch was nasty when he was healthy. He's a really good kicker when he was healthy.
I know.
They shouldn't have, and we said this they shouldn't have been putting him out there when he was banged up.
No, heck no.
They should have been putting him out there. They should have let him rest. We said that like week 9. Sit the kid until he's healthy, because he's not right.
Yeah, at the time we said if you need Mitch Jeter to beat Navy, then you're just not a national champion contender. Like,
that's right.
Sit the kid, let him get right.
But what happened? He healed up, got right in the playoffs, and was money.
Mm-hmm.
Money, just like he was against A&M before he got hurt.
100%.
Because we go 3 for 3 in that game, and he nails that 48-yarder late in the game. It was a 7-point game, and I think he hits a 48. Actually, I'm gonna look that up. I believe it was a 48-yarder. He hits a 48-yarder to basically put the game away in Kyle Field, in a hostile environment, and just was clutch, man. So yeah, I'm looking at it now. The Notre Dame's first score was a 46-yard Mitch Jeter field goal, nailed it. Then he hit a 26-yarder in that game, and then 46 yards, not 48. Sorry, I was way off. It was 46-yarder.
Jeez, come on.
I know. Bush League, Driscoll. Bush League.
Trev,
sometimes people make comments and I start to read them. I'm like, oh, I'm going to so rip this guy. And Charlie Bird 2419 had one where I started to read it. And then I was like, oh, this is very well done, Charlie. Let me pull this comment up. So I'm like glancing to start seeing if there's anything else I want to pull up. And I see Bama had a good resume. And I'm about to say, okay, some SEC troll just jumped into our chat. And then I luckily kept reading. And this is very well done, Charlie Bird. He goes, Bama had a good resume if you ignore the game one blowout, the middle season loss, and the blood at the end of the season. That's a level of sarcasm and pettiness that I greatly appreciate, Charlie Bird.
Absolutely.
Greatly appreciate.
Yeah. That was a good movie if you ignore the beginning, middle, end plot and the cast.
In the beginning, yeah. The acting was really good except for the main guy, and then his partner was terrible, but that one cab driver in that one scene was excellent. So yeah. No, but like, I first glance, I'm like, oh God, because like I don't recognize Charlie Bird's name, so it wasn't like a name that just like oh, that's my guy. I know he's being sarcastic or whatever, but I'm gonna recognize Charlie Bird's name now if he keeps posting, because that was very well done, Charlie Bird. You had me at first, and then you came clutch. You
had him in
correct.
The first half.
You came correct on it, Charlie Bird. So anyway, Trev, that'll do it for today's show, man. Why don't you take us out of here?
Absolutely. That's going to do it for us here today on the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Be sure to hop over to IB Nation Sports Beat. The guys are currently live. Not going to want to miss that show. They're talking more about Marcus Freeman's press conference today. On your way out of here, hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that notification bell. Brian and I will be back tomorrow at our regularly scheduled programming for Buy, Sell, Hold. Thread's already up on the board. Get your submissions in. And if you are not a member of the premium message boards, be sure to do that. Boards.irishbreakdown.com is the best way to support what we do and the best way to stay in tune with what's going on in the offseason. So have a wonderful evening. Until tomorrow, that's Brian. I'm Trevor. We'll see you back here very soon on the Irish Breakdown podcast.